We have no Great War, no Great Depression. Our Great War is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our lives.
Please. Michael. God damn you.
Can't believe they literally paid us $10,000 to move into this house. Yeah, I know, right? Ah, we're in a recession. Oh no, housing prices are out of control. My wife left me because of inflation. Ah, help, I'm poor. I don't know. What was with that real estate agent though, saying this place is like haunted and shit? Ah, he was just trying to scare us. If this house was haunted, I'm pretty sure we would notice. Did you hear that? Nope. Yeah, neither did I. Anyways, that real estate agent, definitely on crack. Yeah. You think it was on crack though? So much crack. Are you kidding? Yeah, I was just joking around, I think. Look, until I see some serious evidence that... Look, until I see some serious evidence that this place is haunted, I'm just gonna sit back, relax, and enjoy the... Do we have a roommate? I guess. I'll believe you. So anyways, yeah, that real estate agent was on crystal meth, I think.
No.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm gonna... I think with each episode, we're gonna try to switch it up a little bit and see how things go, so...
I loved it. I mean, you literally completed one of my live streams and you put me in Fight Club. I adore that movie, even though I probably feel like I shouldn't.
Well,
it's almost one of my favorite. Well, I almost dub it as or deem it as a guilty pleasure. And that book, especially as well as the movie, holds a lot for me. I actually read that book on my very first deployment when I was in Saudi Arabia, and it coincided not too far off from when it was actually released. So I kind of knew all the ins and outs and stuff like that. And as far as book to movies go, even with what was changed, they got a lot right, and tonally they got it right. Because in so many ways, I can't help but to deem Fight Club as a I mean, honestly, I've always seen it more as like a dark comedy, you know, because people, it's weird how from a genre standpoint.
Oh, I mean, it is definitely from, you know, it's one of the greats too. I love that movie. So, but we'll try to switch it up every week or every show, and we'll see if we can, you know, put us in different scenarios.
There you go. Well, hey, folks, guess what? We are back. It's been a long hiatus, but this is Rabbit and Red Radio. I am Theo. It's that one weirdo. If I can say the fucking weirdo, it's weird how I can't fucking say the word weirdo because I'm a weirdo. And, of course, always joining me is Producer Mike.
Me.
I don't know why I threw that in there. I was practicing it in the mirror.
Well, you did it.
Now are you an idiot or the idiot? Because you just put idiot. Like you gave yourself like you're like great value idiot because you didn't give yourself any like real superlatives. You just went with idiot.
Well, I don't want to make myself seem, you know, more. I'm trying to be humble, I guess, in a sense. I don't want to seem more. Well, I guess I can't seem more idiotic than I already am. So. I guess, okay, let's see.
Well, that's not true. I mean, you know me.
No. I guess the idiot would be better because I fancy myself an idiot.
Well, it reminds me, so there's an old joke that John Landis used to tell before he started killing some of his co-stars. Was, oh yeah, people are like, ooh, he's starting off dark. And it's like, well, yeah, look it up. Like, he didn't intend to kill him, but he certainly didn't use the safety protocols. This is a Twilight Zone thing where Victor Morrow and 2 children actually got killed in a stunt that actually had to be cut from the movie because of what had happened behind the scenes, which kind of plays into us talking about The Crow, obviously given, you know, Brandon Lee's demise and how that connected to the movie. And yes, I will be going deep into the Crow remake in just a little bit. And when I say deep, it means I'm not taking off my wristwatch. And I'm gonna go elbows. And I mean elbows deep into that son of a gun. But John, oh yeah, you're ready. Well, like we talked about it a little bit on chat. You were like, let's do it, baby. You like, don't take off your watch. Make sure your fucking rings are on. So the joke is that you're the biggest schmuck in the world, but you're not number one. You're actually number two because you're so much of a schmuck, you couldn't be number one. So you're like the number one idiot, but you'd still be number two. But don't do that. I mean, humbling is one thing, but like, I mean, you might as well put a branding tattoo of like, I still can't believe people do that.
I'm gonna be 45. I should do that for the big 4-5. I should brand myself an idiot.
You're gonna be 45, you poor thing. I will be 50 the day after Christmas.
No, you will not.
Yeah.
You don't. Yeah. You don't look that. Dude, I
keep it all inside. It's because I'm broken inside, like a bull in a china shop. Yeah, emotionally, I'm just punching myself in the dick all the time, crying, go, I didn't make varsity football. Ah. Yeah, people ask, they're like, well, what do you think about? What are your inner workings? I'm like, dude, don't come in here. It's dark. It's dank. Kind of like my ex-girlfriend's vagina. It's very, yeah.
Hey, I know how that goes because I've had exes and I know how that works.
Hey, kids, ever seen a Tic Tac down a whale's hole? Whee! Anyway, yeah, we've been gone for a while, but yeah, we're still us. But it's good that you're all here. Missed y'all. It has been a very unique couple of months for both of us. I'm actually still getting through an illness. I think I licked like a Walmart cart and I got sick, so I got to go back to just licking the Target carts.
Yes.
But I'm here because you were even like, dude, if you're sick, and I'm like, well, I mean, according to the shrinks at the VA, I'm sick no matter what I do. Like, sick is a subjective term, kind of like normal.
Yes.
Or like fisting. It's a subjective term. We're not exactly sure where it begins, where it ends. Yeah.
Right.
But we're also going to talk about Hellvira. I love saying that because my father, with so many means of his torture, he actually exposed me to country music. Some of that stuff took in a good way. A lot of it was like, yeah, I hear Waylon Jennings and I feel like he's putting out a cigarette on me. It's like, that's weird. There's no PTS correlation between those two events. No. But one of the good ones, the positive ones, was the Gatlin brothers. Was giddy up, papa mau mau, giddy up. So every time I say Hellvira, that's a good thing. I know some of you were like, wow, he's really digging deep on like the PTSD cutting on his inner thigh shit. No. It's actually a good one. It's one of the few, but it's good. We're also, and I like how you put on our little header here. Does the crow suck?
Well,
yeah.
I didn't want to give it away, but I knew the answer. But I didn't want.
But you don't even have to work for that to give it away. I mean, and we're not even just talking about. We're not even just talking about the ideal of why the remake is bad by itself. I'll get into more ins and outs specifically because I did see it the day after it came out, so it was like the weekend. And wow, talk about it empty.
Day of. I'm really glad you didn't rush day of for that one.
Honestly, I probably could have waited the 24 hours and just waited for it to be on streaming.
Well, it's
because they did that shit. It does. I can imagine.
It's already got a date, but I don't know the date. But it's already got one.
Oh no! One of the best ones has to be, at least I'm looking forward to, So now, this is not me advocating piracy in any way, shape, or form.
Yes.
I wouldn't do that. However, and I wish I was making this up, somebody, they put it on YouTube. I don't know if YouTube took it down yet, but somebody did a ripped version of Borderlands. I was able to put it on YouTube. Now, let me say this. Even if you watch it that way, you're going to want your fucking money back. Yeah.
So Borderlands is that bad too?
It's not just bad. See, and we're going to get into this a little bit with The Crow because they go hand in hand. You know, the ideal of trying to make movies that are with a niche audience for everybody never works. You know, there's that underlying thinking with a lot of these execs. And you would think they'd kind of learn, and I guess over time we're learning they haven't learned, is that, yes, a lot of people play video games. A lot of people enjoy video games, myself included. But when you make certain games, you're automatically going to remove a mainstream audience because you almost have no choice. And it's not necessarily saying that regular moviegoers should be discarded from those experiences. But, you know, which middle-aged couple in Iowa is like, oh, count me in. I want to see Kate Blanchett in a terrible wig playing a character that's actually closer to 25 than Kate Blanchett being 55. And that's not knocking Kate Blanchett at all. I think she's sexy. She has sexually confused me on many cases, to include Idris Elba. And Kate Blanchett, she can hold her own, and she could absolutely fuck me with her dick. But having said that, she is definitely the wrong person to be playing that role. And the entire movie is severely miscast against the game. And the reason for that, of course, being is, hey, we want to get likability, number one. But number two, we want to get a kind of cast that's going to throw people for a loop. Because it is fun to see ensemble casting come through where you're like, how did they get them? How did they? I mean, Jeremy Irons as Alfred, I enjoyed. But I had a moment of, okay, does Jeremy Irons have like payday loan payments? Like, what's he doing in the DCU? And to be fair, he did a better job as an Alfred than Jesse Eisenberg did as a Lex Luthor. You know, literally one of the most menacing figures, and they made him sound like Mickey Mouse. Like, and the most evil thing he did with his time as Lex Luthor is he shoved candy in a politician's mouth. And I gotta say, when I saw that scene in the theater, I wanted to leave and take a bath. That shit felt so fucking dirty and so bizarre that he would do. And it was meant to be like forbidden fruit. You know, it was meant to be allegory, if you will, where it was forbidden fruit. It was the ideal of, okay, eating this means now you're with me. So I know where they were going with that. But one, it was creepy. Because it was like, I can't remember if it was like a Swedish Fish or like a Sour Patch Kid, but he like put it in his mouth and like shoved it. Yeah,
that's disturbing.
My testes are growing up inside me thinking about this scene and speaking about it out loud.
Yeah,
It's just rough. And two, if you look real good, I'm pretty sure Lex's fingernails weren't clean. So you're like, did you want pink eye? Because that's fucking how you get pink eye, Mr. Politician, sir. Exactly. That's the appropriate response.
Gotta wash your hands.
But I tried watching this Borderlands, and number one, anytime a studio realizes that a movie is going to go sideways, 9 out of 10 times they're going to chop it up to make it as edible, digestible, but also as less painless on the audience. We've seen it before with many movies where they'll chop them down to like 90 minutes, 100 minutes, because they want to get people in and out as quick as possible before the jig is up, and that this movie's probably not very good. I wish they had done that with the last fucking Exorcist movie, but they fucking didn't.
I was gonna ask you about that. I'm sorry, I had to write. You brought up Exorcist. They made me think of my thought. Now I have to ask you my thought. Now I got to write my thought.
Okay.
So
yes, that's normal for girls to squirt.
Wow. So I'm still trying to get there. I haven't been there yet. And hello, Morgan. I know you were on YouTube. You said, but we did start. I don't know if we started. I have to look and see if we're on YouTube or not. I don't know. It says we are here, but I didn't look on actual YouTube itself.
It says a lot of things.
I know. I don't like any of it. But so my thought,
Morgan, glad you're here. Nainer is here too. We thank you.
Yes.
That's just fun to say, and I haven't said it in so long, so now it's like fucking crack. It's like
there we go. So my thought is, now you were prepared to leave during Be Shitter, as it was dubbed.
yes,
So,
that's a good one actually.
How did you make it through The Crow? Which leads me to believe that even though The Crow is a huge pile of shit, Be Shitter was much worse than The Crow.
Well, between the two, I'm not sure which one is technically worse. But I guess with The Crow, okay, so here's the best way for me to encapsulate my answer. In the case of The Crow, I kind of felt, because, okay, so the reason why, so one answer, to give one answer, I technically have to have two. Let's put it this way. So the reason why me and my girlfriend, when we were watching it and stuff at the time, basically she was ready to leave. We didn't watch. We didn't leave because she thought I wanted to keep watching. And at that point, I just flat out didn't care. If she had turned to me and said, "Hey, you want to go?" I would have been like, "Let's do it." Like, let's go to fucking Build-A-Bear and like hide all the bears' heads and freak out all the kids. I stayed with Believer.
Yeah.
Only because I guess I felt like at the end of the day, I paid for a ticket. It takes a lot for me to leave a movie, and I've done it before. In the case of The Crow not leaving, I think it was almost like bemusement to how just not good this was. In the case of Madam Web, we should have left because that didn't get better. In the case of The Crow, there's like some little bright spots, and I mean thin bright spots as to what works and what doesn't. And it is kind of one of those things where the glimmers of hope are like, expanding out the film, the movie itself on a reel, and then just finding little spots where it's like, okay, well, that's a happy spot. That's a happy spot. Because there's a couple things they play with that actually make you go, ooh, okay. It helps kind of give you kind of and it in no way saves the movie, but it does make you feel like as you watch it, you're like, okay, maybe out there's a rough cut where they had a little more direction and they really didn't, with the final cut. And while we're on it, I'll just really get into the whole thing about The Crow and my biggest overall heave, which actually kind of plays into another bit that we have to definitely discuss. So for those who may or may not know, they remade The Crow. Now, this is something that studios have been working on for a long time. And I get that there is that crowd out there that is very precious and connective, if you will, to the Brandon Lee movie. I consider myself 1 foot in that camp and 1 foot not. The reason I say that is because you know, Brandon Lee was absolutely a life and career cut short. I think The Crow really encapsulates what could have been in one movie. And I of course find it, like many people, sad as well as conflicting as well as eerie that he died, you know, the way he did, making a movie about someone who dies for love and then comes back. So there is this very, you know, locked connectivity between how he died and what he was making. And that's part of the unfortunate, you know, truth, but dark romanticism to the movie. And at the end of the day, it holds up because his performance holds up. And a lot of the themes within the source material translated and holds up. I've actually met the creator, James O'Barr, a couple times here in Salt Lake City for FanX. Super nice guy, rather British, you know, he British, but just, you know, it's crazy how he created something that had such a cult following as a comic book, and then it translated extremely well into the movie. But also, let's be clear, not long after that movie premiered and did actually well, even under the circumstances surrounding it, sequels were made with different characters, as of The Crow, kind of running the same line. And let's be honest, a lot of these, because there's 3 other movies, and then of course this remake, and then there was a series that actually had Mark DeCostas, and I believe he played Eric Draven.
He did, yes.
So when people have that, oh, it's precious, they can't. No, they can. Unfortunately, they can, and they will. And for many people, obviously, if not, you know, because they're like, well, not enough time's passed. Well, let's be honest, with the way the Brandon Lee version went and his passing, I don't think there's ever going to be enough time that really passes for people who are so, you know, they closely hold that movie. And like I said, I partially feel like I'm in that camp a little bit when you look at like the whole movie, and it does play well as a cult movie, especially with everything surrounding it. Of course, one of the great things to come from that movie is the soundtrack, which is still probably one of the best fucking soundtracks ever made. Definitely of the 90s.
No,
that soundtrack is amazing. You have a Cure song with a flute solo, I Say No More. And the 2 times I've seen the Cure, they play that song, and it's an amazing song. They have Rage Against the Machine with a song called Darkness, which is actually really fucked up when you listen to the lyrics, but hey, it's Rage Against the Machine. That's what they were supposed to do. So there's so much about the 1994 movie that endures. But Hollywood is going to do what they do best. And they're going to find a way to take something that is somewhat considered sacred and make it unsacred. Usually with little to no effort to kind of give fans the corporate middle finger, as I'll call it, because you had multiple studios try to get this thing off the ground, didn't. They had actually tried to get Bradley Cooper to play in this movie. There was actually previs art that exists out there, and he just didn't make it happen. It just didn't go down. And then in the case of kind of going further down the line, they also had Jason Momoa, and he was signed on. So you had many directors attached. You had many. Sorry. You had many directors. You had many actors attached. Obviously, different screenwriters, and of course, in the meantime, there's a lot of money thrown at this to try to get this thing off the ground. And I thought for a while they were just going to be like, fuck it, we can't do it. For whatever reason, we can't get people to sign on. The backlash is too great. Well, Lionsgate, which is now apparently in the business of trying to get sacred franchises kind of rehashed
Mm-hmm.
because we now have the Highlander movie, which I believe starts filming in January, which is something they've tried to get off the ground for a long time. They've got Henry Cavill attached to it, and they've got Chad Stahelski, who did the John Wicks, who is now attached to it. Or actually, he's been attached to it for a minute. That was kind of that's been one of his biggie projects for a long time to try to get off the ground. So, first thing about the Crow movie that we see with a lot of Hollywood is that when they want to do this stuff, they're going to do it. Regardless of what the fans think, regardless of what we want, if you will, it doesn't matter. So this version, right off the bat, they make some choices that not only just don't make sense, literally has no business being there. So first movie, they play with this a lot in the comic book, which is why it works, is that, Eric and Shelley are this happy couple in an unhappy place, and they're doing their best. And the ideal of loss is what really carries over. And right from the jump, the way they set it up in the movie, because Shelley's in like a handful of scenes, but what they really do here that works extremely well is in the first one is that you get their love, and you get that deep down they're actually decent people who are decent to each other and really love each other, and actually try to be good because they're good people at their core. In the remake, it's very hard right off the bat to root for our main characters because, one, this Eric and Shelley have no chemistry at all. I adore Bill Skarsgård, I really do.
Oh,
but
me too.
But he is really not. He is just. I don't want to say he's horribly miscast, but it's very hard to kind of buy him. And the sad part is like any Bill Skarsgård performance, like the man is not phoning anything in. Like he's amazing,
right,
through the whole thing. He's absolutely there and he's dialed in, but he's just wrong guy, wrong place, wrong time. And then the person they have playing Shelley, and I guess she's an R&B artist. She's trying to, but you can tell acting is definitely not something that's suited to her for whatever reason. It's just not.
I want to say this is her first. I think this was her first movie, or is her first movie, or something like that.
Oh, it shows, no doubt. But ultimately, they're in this drug rehab center. She gets caught with drugs because she has people chasing her. Like a lot of the stuff makes zero sense as far as what sets up the plot.
Right.
There's a lot that just doesn't make sense as to why they're together. Like, it's like, well, they try to play it as love at first sight, and neither of them are endearing, and they don't seem that endearing to each other. And then they know that bad people is chasing technically both of them. So instead of getting out of the city they're in, they stay in that city and they party for like a weekend, and they're in public and they do drugs. And it's like, why are you not trying to lay low if you think people are, or because they go to an apartment of a friend she knows and they lay low for a minute. Okay, that makes sense. Maybe you're rallying your resources and you're trying to get a plan together. And then they go out to all these clubs and all these hot spots and they do drugs in public, which is what she got kind of technically arrested for.
Oh.
Yeah, and so many of the things they do just don't make sense. There's nothing that really makes these two characters likable. And then the bad guys catch up to them. Big shock, because they're not laying low. Like I said, this entire movie, the last thing they're doing is being smart. Like it is another classic case of, hey, let's have the characters make shit decisions so we can drive the plot forward. Has nothing to do with making the movie good. Has nothing to do with organically applying the characters to the situation. It's just, oh yeah, go out in public, they'll catch up to you.
So do you think the script was like shit, so to speak, or like?
I think number one, I mean, like many movies that get made as a whole, like changes get made in the process. But I'm pretty sure this was a case of also the studio trying to get their hands in there and trying to apply changes. And it feels like there are things that are missing. Yeah. It always feels like there's stuff missing when in those places, those types of situations. This movie is no different. Like you're pretty sure there are things that are not completely cohesive. Like things seem off. I guess is the best way to put it. And it's very prevalent in this movie. It's part of the reason why it sucks so bad. So she dies, she's going to hell. He doesn't die. He goes to kind of this purgatory. And he meets this character named Kronos. And Kronos is supposed to be kind of his guide. And basically, you know, it's like, you know, a soul can be unrest if love is like, you know, cut short or whatever. And I say whatever because it's really unclear. Not like the 94 one where it's like, okay, you're back after a year, your soul's unrest, and you come back to life. And this one, there's none of that time passing where the character's kind of like, because that one was so great, I think, where it was like, okay, years passed, he's resurrected, he comes back. And then it's like, okay, so the world's kind of moved on. He has to play a little catch up, Eric Draven.
Right.
But he still has like kind of this revenge plot to you know, enact. And this time around, you know, he goes right back and he can feel everything, but he can't really die. But because he's doubting their love, he doesn't know if he can stay the crow. And that automatically is one of the biggest red flags, because part of the point was, you know, he loved her to such a degree that it literally shook the cosmos in a way to bring him back. You know what I mean? The ideal of like a resurrection, you know, it's funny in a lot of movies and stuff they play with. Oh, well, yeah. Okay. But it's like, well, no, if you were to think about like if a person, like even one, got resurrected, like that's insane. That wouldn't be just, oh, okay, you're back. Hey, you missed out. Like the Saints actually won a Super Bowl. No, it'd be like, you know, it'd be like moving of these, you know, cosmic tides. And here it's like, well, you know, if you're not sure about her love, we don't know if you can make it a crow. So then he does. Eric, Bill Skarsgård character, basically decides to sacrifice his soul for her. Now, that's also another issue. Because, you know, Eric is only resurrected so long in the first one. And the crow is his guide. It's his tether. In this one, they're like, well, okay, if you kill these guys and you give up your soul, she can come back, but you're still going to stay dead. And it's supposed to be a sacrifice of ultimate love. And it's like, no, the whole unrest thing is what technically brought him back. So he becomes the crow. Now, also, a very key point here is movie is about an hour and 50-ish minutes.
Yeah. Which is already longer than the original, because the original is an hour and 41.
Yes. So you actually get to see the crow in the Brandon Lee version actually make his way through. That's why, you know, they spend a lot of time with the character, and as well they should. It's fucking named after him. You get maybe 15, 20 minutes of the crow in the 2024 Crow movie.
Oh, wait. Whoa.
Yeah, he's not the crow very long in this thing.
What is so? Wait, so he's not the crow. So he's just some.
They spend about a third
Yeah.
building up that romance that just doesn't work. They don't have chemistry. They're not likable characters.
So they were
there's
live.
just
So they were live for like
the better part of it.
I already don't. I definitely do not like the sound of this at all.
It's just so much nonsensicalness. And then you have really only one big action scene in an opera house, and it's not anything fantastical. It's very, I mean, it's got its blood and bullets, and you're like, that's cool, but you're not exactly thrilled by any of it. A lot of it feels pretty standard. And then, you know, he faces the bad guy and then kills him. And the bad guy has supernatural powers that apparently he made a deal with the devil for longevity. So, and he would steal souls in return, but they don't even do anything with that. And the villain's played by Danny Houston, and they waste Danny Houston so badly in this movie.
Oh, no.
It's almost criminal.
No. This almost seems like the Crow City of Angels, which I didn't like that one. Or even, you know what? No, I'm not even going to say that. It almost sounds like Wicked Prayer with Edward Furlong is better than this shit pile.
You know, I actually watched City of Angels in the theater many years ago.
So did I. Yep. So did I.
And it wasn't bad. It wasn't great.
Mhm.
It wasn't exactly what one would call a fan.
Mhm.
But it had Iggy Pop in it. And that soundtrack was pretty good. It wasn't as good as the first one, but that was a good soundtrack.
No. Yeah, it still was.
Yeah.
Definitely was still good. But this just seems...
Well, they missed the point right off the jump.
Mhm.
And it's always interesting to watch because, you know, everybody, when people see movies like this and they get very frustrated and they're like, oh crap, you know, they went and did this again. And that's the operative term. Again, they're gonna keep doing it. Like, people love to sit there and give Hollywood a little more credit than they deserve at times, where it's like, oh, well, they're not gonna do this again. Yes, they are. It is always so much, and not even easier. It's just always an efficient go-to, because they spent years trying to get this remake off the ground, years, and we finally have an endpoint, and it's like, okay, nobody's going to touch The Crow for at least another 20 years, and they probably shouldn't, unless you're going to go with another iteration of the character, which you can do.
Yeah.
And kind of expand on the universe, which is a great option, but doesn't sound like something they were going to do. Like, not even close.
Well, no, and especially because it's like it almost makes me think that they were expecting this to fail. So,
I think they realized that at one point. I think they came to that conclusion and went, yeah, we fucked this pony in the wrong way. Because the way they released it, because it was always going to come out in August,
yeah,
but they moved the date from August 9th to the 23rd.
yeah,
And then they made even more cuts. So they kind of realized they didn't have a winner here. But I think they might be astonished as to how bad it was received. But it deserved to be, because there's so many choices that are wrong. They don't get this thing in the right. They don't even get this thing in the right direction. Like, they don't honor anything from before, because they're like, well, we want to stand on our own, but then they still want to slap the name on it. Like, it's always weird when they do these things, because they want to sit there and go, look at our originality. And it's like, there's nothing original about any of it.
No.
Not even close. If you check it out on streaming, sure, go for it. You're probably not going to enjoy it.
No,
any more than I did.
I'm guaranteeing I won't. Oh,
it's rough because, like I said, there's a couple, like the ideal of him continuing to lose his humanity by way of trying to avenge her is a pretty interesting ideal in and of itself. They never explore it. They talk about it for about 2 scenes, and it kind of invokes him to sell his soul.
It's like, why were they alive for so long? It just, I don't get that. I do not get it. I wish I could like understand their reasoning for that, but I don't get it. I don't get it.
It's because they feel like they can bring something back and then get people excited. Because it's always, and it's not just nostalgia baiting, but it's also name recognition. If you like this, then you'll like this. If you like that, you'll like this. And they've been doing it. I mean, we've talked about it before on the show, but they've been doing it forever. And I think the sad thing is that there's no good side to any of it. We never see. I mean, there are some remakes that get it right, but they are few and far between. And one of the few that comes to mind where it was like, holy shit, you guys did that. You did it. You nailed it. It was The Crazies.
Yeah. Oh,
with Timothy Olyphant. That fucking
100%.
remake is the business. I fucking love that remake. And part of the best part is they don't spend a lot of time trying to set shit up that doesn't need to be set up. That doesn't convolute the plot, doesn't make it all murky and try to figure it out. It's like, no. Motherfuckers go nuts and shit gets nuts. Period. Dot. Well, sit back for about an hour and 50 minutes and you're going to be fine. You're going to enjoy it.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, and I did look. I'll just call it the shit, because that's what it is. The shit. The shit hits streaming on Friday the 13th, which is this coming Friday.
Oh. Yay. You can watch the shitbird. We'll call the crow the shitbird. You can watch the shitbird on Friday the 13th, because it's an unlucky day to begin with. Yeah,
well, no, I'm not ruining my Friday the 13th with that. That's just not going to happen. He's getting up, so I will try to. Horrible. I just cannot believe. Oh, I have a private chat. That's okay. Got it. Now I see it. Okay. So, I'm here. I should have anybody. I know nobody watching probably listen to this Jacket Audio. They have a all by myself segment. I should have something like that on the ready, so I could, play that part. I wish I had a trailer or something to cover the time, but I did not. I should probably put some stuff in here that would help with things. I know. We'll do a B-movie TV break. I'll be right back.
Looking for all your favorite B-movies in one place? Look no further than B-Movie TV exclusively on Roku. We've got action, horror, sci-fi, sleaze, and independent wrestling, plus exclusive hosted shows like Friday Night Action, Saturday Night Terrors, Merry Death subbed and dubbed Horror Fest, Sci-Fi Sideshow, and Pervy the Clown Show. So get in on all the craziness that is B-Movie TV.
There, I put a little break in there because I just don't know how to talk. I don't know how to talk to myself.
You didn't? Ah, bro, you would have been fine.
I talked to myself for like 20-some seconds, 30-some seconds, and I was like, okay.
For all you folks out there, just to give you a heads up, I'd step out for a minute because right now my stomach is a mess by way of being under the weather. And I actually have a stomach issue by way of my time in the active duty. The active duty. It's like sounds like something made up. I was in the active duty. You know,
Well,
those
hopefully you're
guys.
not having active duty because that wouldn't be fun.
I'm trying not to have active duty, but if I shit myself on air, we better get a Depend sponsorship.
Ah, yes, that dude. You know what? I almost want to tell you to do that because that could really help us send it home.
Hey, I got a joke that should piss at least somebody off. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm certainly ready. Let's do it.
So, what do old people taste like?
No idea.
Yeah, it depends. Whoops.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
That is great. But
I went and got some Alka-Seltzer while Mike took that home there for a second.
Yeah.
I'm doing my best, but I'm a mess. So, oh, that's like a greeting card. That's like a T-shirt waiting to happen.
You know what? Well, I am trying to get more like a merch thing going. You should really. That would be a good idea. I have to get some use sayings and stuff that we can put on merchandise and whatnot because that would be.
I say get crazy. Like even if people don't necessarily buy, just like put something wacky on a shirt. Like fisting should be an Olympic sport.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to deal with that fucking narcissistic piece of shit woman from Australia who somehow look, if you go back, so I'm not trying to get on a bit of a sidestep here, but I will say this. So those who know about the Olympics where they introduced breakdancing, which I thought was kind of cool because for those who know,
I saw they did that. Yeah.
There is a great foundation and history to the subculture that I think is really worth exploring. And to have something like that in an Olympic game, I think is pretty awesome. I don't know if it's necessarily progressive because obviously breakdancing was a big deal more in the 80s, but it's still a thing. And then you have this woman in Australia who decides, I'm going to find a way to the Olympics with no skill or no talent. And that's literally what she did. And it's crazy to think, because remember, you have to, so there was no breakdancing committee in Australia. So she had to help start one to allow her to go to the Olympics. And her husband was the head of the committee. She started herself because that doesn't sound janky by itself right there. And for those who watched her in the Olympics, it is literally one of the, it's rude, number one. People are like, well, if they're going to allow something like that, people are going to take advantage because there's obviously all kinds of cheating and rigging and stuff like that in the Olympics to begin with. And I say, well, yeah, if you let people cheat, it's going to happen. But this wasn't even cheating, in my opinion. This was like, because for me, cheating is like, okay, you took steroids or you took something to gain an edge and stuff like that. This was this woman is like, you have no fucking talent for this at all, but you know how to take a system and work it and bend it to your will. Okay, kudos on her. A couple of cool points for it's like, okay, you beat the system. Good for you. But one, breakdancing is now not going to be a part of the next Olympics. Big shock. So those who work hard at this and actually have skill and aptitude for this, you basically gave them a middle finger so you could get on a TV set somewhere. Good fucking for you, lady. And recently, she attempted to apologize for this. And if you kind of look back at the trajectory of this story getting up to her apology, you can imagine how her apology went. It went something like, hey, I'm sorry that you guys didn't like my dancing. It's really weird that we now live in a time where not only do people not make it a point to admit when they're wrong, it's they'll apologize and make other people the victims, where it's like, oh, no. It's not my fault. I did something wrong and fucked over a system so I could do this. It's more of a case of, oh, well, you just didn't like my dancing. it's not an apology. That's even more of an admission that you went and fucked over some system and decided in your infinite wisdom you were going to, you know what I mean? It's always weird now. We live in a time where there's so much facing for this kind of stuff where, yeah, I'll apologize, but I'm not going to mean it. And what made you, you know what I mean? It's like, and of course it's like, well, what made you think I was going to mean it? It's always, yeah. It's always interesting to see that kind of stuff. And honestly, it almost makes me a little sad.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I can see that, and that's
well for shit like that. It's like, you know, for me, it's like, well, why the fuck they even bother? Like, if you don't mean it, and if you haven't learned anything from your actions, shut your fucking mouth. Like, don't even bother trying to fucking, you know, oh, I'm sorry. No, you're sorry that you got caught, and it's crazy to think. It's crazy to think how this woman. Like, and I would have to kind of argue that you would hope that somebody who would try to fuck a system like this to get in on Olympic breakdancing would at least pretend to give a shit enough before the competition to maybe try to learn some of this shit. And she didn't, because honestly, when you really stop and look at it, she didn't have to. But in my mind, it's like, okay, you're representing your country. Like, you know, you kind of pulled this interesting little grift here. But at the end of the day, maybe, just maybe, you want to look good for it. And she didn't. The last thing she did was give a fuck.
very just.
Yeah. Yeah. For those out there, if you get a chance to check out her apology, it's worth the giggle because you know it's not sincere. It's disingenuous. Very much so. Where I mean, I too, like many people, probably was like, why the fuck she bother? Like, why didn't she just shut her fucking trap? Especially considering the damage is done. You know, they're not going to have breakdancing, you know, anytime soon in Olympic competition. And it's probably going to be a kryptonite subject for many years to come.
Right.
Just off of one person. And there are so many people, like, you can watch obviously YouTube videos, but there are so many people who are extremely talented who hold this stuff dear, have spent years putting their bodies through so much to be able to do this. And like any type of dancing that you do long term on the body, I mean, let's be honest, we all know that, you know, sooner or later the body is going to have a limit. It's going to have a point where can't really do that anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, this person just decided to take a system, bend it to her will, do what she did. And yeah, she's kind of an asshole for it in my book.
Yeah, I mean, that's
but she's Australian. She probably doesn't feel shamed that way.
oh, I wonder if she's a beer drinker. No, I'm thinking of that when you did that Australian. I'm thinking of Foster's Australian for beer.
I just want you to know, actual Australians hate Foster's. They think that's
Really?
shit. Yeah.
Shit.
Oh yeah, they
Wow.
love to export that stuff out. They love to get rid of it. They're like, everybody thinks that shit's so cool, and it's like it's not. I'm like, well, you know, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it's one of those things that just makes you like, you know, it's literally kind of just feels like, you know, that's why we can't have nice things in this house because people pull shit like that.
Yeah.
And it was weird because at first people felt bad for her. It's like, oh, but maybe it was just stage fright or peer pressure. And it's like, no. This woman was fucking talentless for this. She knew that. She knew that from the jump.
That's wow.
Yep.
Really, it's like, you know, try to do something new. Try to do, well, not new, but something different, something unique that they haven't done, you know, ever in the Olympics, and then it just gets
Yeah. That's how it goes. Well, and like I said, especially in the case of this person, her just not caring about the outcome and not caring that it's going to leave this lasting impression to where it's going to carry over for years, and it's going to hurt people who actually care about this stuff.
Right. Oh,
yeah. Nothing. You know what? Nothing worse than an imitator. But 2 times over, nothing worse than an imitator that just don't give a fuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hear that.
And that's kind of the issue with the whole thing, where she just like I said, just for poops and giggles, you want to check out the apology. It's worth an eye roll. We'll put it that way.
I'll have to look that up. That seems interesting. Yes. Oh no. You're muted, I believe.
Yes, I am. So I'm going to push you to talk a little bit. Going to get you outside your comfort zone.
I got scared.
You did get nervous. I heard that in your voice.
Look, I did a thing before years ago when Rabbit and Red first started in 2010. The guy that I started with, Vince, he started the show. He brought me in, and he wanted to do like a solo podcast with just him talking.
Right.
And I was like, well, I can't do that. And he was like, well, it's a solo podcast. It's just me talking. So I said, okay. So he did that. And then I went back and I listened to it and I said, no, I will never do anything by myself because I can't do it.
Solo podcasts are kind of tricky because they can get into some interesting spaces, because one, having done solo podcasts before, and I actually like doing it, been going through a lot lately, and then being sick recently obviously is like, the cherry on the shit sundae. So I hope to come back to that very soon. I missed it dearly, so I'd like to come back to doing a solo podcast, actually a couple. But solo podcasts get kind of tricky because, one, if you're somebody who likes to just talk from the rift, just say whatever, whenever, kind of like myself, you can get a little long-winded and you can kind of trail, and that can be fun. But even if you just do that, I think a time constraint is extremely important.
Yeah.
Because there are people who have like YouTube videos who it is just them droning for 3 hours, and droning can happen very easily, especially when you feel like you're running out of stuff to say, or you don't have anything written down notes wise, you don't have anything scripted. Completely understandable. 2, the other end of that, I look at like murder podcasts, and I look at like, true crime podcasts, and a lot of those kind of get into that space where it's like, okay, yeah, you have stuff written, but then it turns sterile because it becomes more informational, and it just stays informational. And that ain't all bad, obviously, but it does also make the case for when you're just talking about certain things and not really going for anything else, if you know what I mean. Like, it's kind of like doing a newsreader, like a concrete thing. Walter Cronkite. Sorry, I'm such a mess, folks. The fact that I'm saying anything at all is like a blessing and a curse, maybe to all of you.
See, you're making it work, though. I don't make it work like you do. You make it work like it's magic. I love it.
It's all the Alka-Seltzer. I'm not sure how I'm pulling it off, but it's like anything else in this world. You fake it till you make it. But a big thing for me is I think there has to be a balance. Like, it's nice to have some notes, but I think it's fun to kind of just shoot from the hip a little bit and have fun with it. Because I feel like there's that other side where that won't happen so much. When you don't really get there, you know what I mean? When you're just on this day, there was this happened to this person. A woman in Walmart choked to death on her own blue vest. You know, it's you can only do so much with that. And I love, like, when I started really getting into radio and being a fan of it, like Paul Harvey, you know, even the stuff he read had those touches of him, and that's kind of what made him great. And then I also think about, for some people out there who are like, wow, they didn't realize I was that old. It's like, well, yeah, I am that old. When I think about like Car Talk, you know, Click and Clack, the Tappet Brothers, where they know their stuff, but they have bits, they have parts of things scripted, and then they have, you know, callers and things that are kind of off the cuff. So it's always great to kind of explore that space. I think just the idea of playing with a solo podcast is fun, because it gives you, you know, one thing with podcasting that's so great is everything's kind of usable, and it's all kind of content. And with a solo podcast, you know, you can go off on tangents, and you can kind of have your mind, you can have things go off into places where you didn't necessarily have written down, and you were like, oh shit, I talked about that. I didn't think I was going to talk about that, but I talked about that. I'm glad I talked about it. It was actually pretty cool. It was great. And, you know, sometimes being too scripted, too structured, takes away from the spontaneity, takes away from just that organic, like, hey, today we're going to talk about, I stubbed my toe. And speaking of toes, I saw this hot chick, and she had a camel toe, and I introduced myself, and her name was Craig. So, you know, it's, you know what I mean? You can get some kind of unpredictability out of it, you know, whatever may come, and you just kind of roll. I've had solo podcasts, and I've told you before about the very first one that I recorded for the video station. And I was drunk as fuck, and probably high as a kite a little bit, sitting outside of a.
Oh, wait, I did hear that. Is that the one
I told
heard?
you that story.
That's the one
you may have
I
heard.
that.
The one you may have heard that I sent you originally when you were trying to get people to do this. I don't know if it was the Pulp Fiction episode. So that was actually done in a professional studio here in Utah, about 30 minutes down the road. A great place called Rookery Studios. And basically part of this Utah podcast group, which they just weren't my people. Nothing against them personally. A lot of them were great, but it was like, okay, it's fine. They're cool, whatever. A lot of them were realtors looking to kind of make connections. We'll leave it at that. I mean, that's really what it was. And like I said, it's no salt on any of them. That's really what they were doing. And I was like, well, okay, then you do what you do. That's fine. But they were giving out, for just being at the meeting, a 1 hour studio window to go in there and record. And the one I did, I think I recorded with you, was Pulp Fiction. But my first one was about Die Hard, because that was my quote unquote Christmas episode at the time.
Yes, I do. I remember the Die Hard one, because I did hear that one too. I love that one. I loved it, because it is Christmas.
Sat in a parking lot. And just fucking chilled, and my girlfriend had to go to the ER, and because, you know, to be a self-starter can actually be really tricky, because you can get in your own head, you can get lazy. I've been at both ends of that. I think we all have, but I know for so long I wanted to do it, and I was like, well, I got to buy this and I got to buy that. I remember, and I've bought expensive equipment that I don't have anymore. I've returned. I think somewhere in between it all, you have to just find what works for you. And it's nice, of course, to have good sound quality and have things that will make it work better and make you sound better. But I think you also have to kind of know yourself and know what works for you, as far as not just the type of podcaster you're trying to be, but like how you want to convey things. And definitely not a message. Trust me, we're not role models. We're not trying to give away any positive messaging or any of that stuff. We're just, yeah. Once again, hey, speaking of camel, hey, speaking of toes, like we're that. So in that night, in that moment, I kind of had this just kind of almost a chat with myself. It might have been the booze and the drugs, sure. Why the fuck not? But I did. Hey self, what are you doing? I don't know, man. If I was any higher right now, I'd hit my head on a cloud with an angel on it. That's one way to look at it. No, I'm very much in the mindset, at least in that moment, telling myself, like, look, you're never going to have the perfect setup. You're never going to have everything is where it needs to be. Everything is perfect. It's not always going to play the way you want because you think it needs to be a certain way. In some cases, you just got to go fucking do it. So I did. And to be fair, I mean, I did it on like Anchor, which is now obviously Spotify for podcasters. And yeah, it didn't necessarily sound the best, but I was able to do it. And if I remember correctly, I published it like right then and there. Like I published it and then I turned around and I put it on like my Facebook, the link and all that stuff. And I truly was like, okay, I did it. And it wasn't like trying to half-ass it or rush to the ending or anything to that effect. It was just the ideal that if you're going to do this, you have to do it. People get obviously in their heads, like I said, and find themselves in one of those positions where it's like, I can't, who's going to listen? And for those out there who are thinking of podcasting or, have that kind of in the back of their mind or whatever, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Mike, you may back me up on this.
I'm sure I will.
At the end of the day, you have to kind of understand that nobody's going to fucking listen to it.
Right.
Nobody is going to right off the jump. You are not, in most cases, unless you have some type of actor or actress credit or some type of following, or you're doing an offshoot of something else that by way connects what you're doing, and you have kind of, I guess you could say, a built-in fan base. 9 out of 10 times, nobody's going to fucking listen. Nobody. They're not going to know about it. They may stumble across it. They may listen to you for 10 seconds and go, the fuck is this? And shut it off. It is all par for the course. So, and this is not me trying to shoot anybody down. This is actually positive reinforcement. Nobody's going to listen. This has to be a hobby or an enjoyment that you connect to for you. If people listen, wonderful. Yes, that's the point. Long game. But the short game, the whole, what if no one listens? Nobody's going to listen. Nobody. That is the fucking brass tacks. That is as real as chlamydia and taxes. It is true to form that nobody is going to listen right off the jump. That's where you keep doing it. You keep your head on, because for a lot of people, they do get deterred very easily, because it's like, well, I try to make time. I live my life. I got to pay my bills. How the fuck do I get this done if I can't do this? And that's very tricky, because in the middle of trying to live and do everything, you can't help but to backburner this stuff, because, once again, it's a case of, well, what's important?
Yeah.
What's going to matter? What's important? And so often for not, that's none of that's going to be the case. You are going to find yourself in several instances where you're like, what am I doing? Who is this fucking for? So that's the first realization I came to right off the bat. Number two, all your friends who are supportive tell you, yeah, cool, do that. I'll listen. You send them the link, they ain't gonna fucking listen. Two reasons. One, if they talk to you all the time, they've heard all this shit before. They're not gonna do it again. Number two, more importantly, support doesn't necessarily have to mean listening. Yeah, you want people to listen, of course. But the ideal of the built-in audience of your friends and family, I think personally that's a myth.
Yeah.
And a lot of that just has to do with them wanting to say nice, constructive things to make you feel better. But also, honestly, they're kind of fucking lying to you.
Yeah.
That's just, and it's not, once again, this is not to disparage people. This is actually meant to be somewhat helpful. But I know personally that people just, I guess the third point to this is you got to do it for you. You got to do it because you love it. And I think somehow in between that holds it up, because I've struggled with a lot of things recently, but some of my gaps in doing this stuff have literally been, who's listening to this? But I have you, producer Mike, to be very thankful and grateful for, to continue to do this, as well as other friends that I have, part-time gamers, other shows that I've done with TV's Travis and stuff like that. So I think another point, kind of additional bit caveat, if you will, is that when you do this, you are going to meet people, but you also got to put yourself out there. You know what I mean? If you don't record a podcast, who the fuck listens? Well, nobody. That's who, because you didn't record it.
True.
And if you're not trying to learn from your mistakes and work at it, and it is going to take work, because once again, the people closest to you ain't necessarily going to listen.
Oh, believe me, I know that.
Yeah.
I'll just so I have to interject here for a second. So your first point, where you were saying about it's got to be something that you love and you do it for you and blah. So my thing is, now I started podcasting in 2010, and I did various shows from 2010 through the end of 2020. And then in 2021 in January, I started with this network thing. And I'm still trying to find my audience for this network thing because they seem to be non-existent. And, we'll get there. And I mean, there's plenty of people that I know who talk big game and say they have all these followers and all these people that watch or listen, and they don't. I mean, they don't. I think Rumble numbers are severely inflated. So even though our Rumble numbers are great, our YouTube algorithm is a nightmare. And I don't know if that's because YouTube just doesn't like me or what. But nobody's finding the show on YouTube. There's a few people that find it on Twitter and, and the website. But, basically it's like I'm still trying to find the audience. That's why I'm trying to do consistency within the shows, at least that I do. But the problem is, it's like life happens, and it's like you can't always do it. And I get that. But it's like one of these days, and you, sir, are a shining example of why Rabbit and Red is still going, because without you, I wouldn't be doing it still, and it would just have dissolved into nothingness. So for that, I thank you.
See, that's why I come on this show and I continue to do this, so you can make me feel good about my ego and bullshit. It's fucking great. It works. Still here. I'm coughing up blood butter.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm like, yeah, let's do this.
Did you say you're coughing up blood?
No, lung butter.
Oh, well, I don't know what. Okay.
Phlegm. Phlegm. Yeah.
Oh, phlegm. Okay.
You wanna see? No, I'm not.
No,
That bad.
I'll vomit. I will vomit.
Well, that
so-
should get our ratings
so-
up.
Yes. Oh, dude, I will puke. I did puke on the laptop on one show a while ago.
Did you really?
Like, oh yeah, because I got grossed out or I was coughing and I just puked all over the keyboard.
Wow. That's like some Faces of Death shit right there. That's kind of
Yeah.
it's kind of charming. I mean, well,
Yeah.
not charming. I mean, but that's like shock value. That's how you fucking get him in the fucking seats.
Right. Yeah,
Make it fucking real. Let him know you've been there.
It is. I mean, that's the thing. But yeah, and I mean, with your solo stuff, like I said, if you like a platform, I know you did Spotify before. I know Spotify changed. They changed something, and there's people that don't like what they changed.
They've gotten very what they're doing. So, and I think they've kind of gone this way before. They're trying to make it a little more easier and inclusive for artists, for podcasters, if you will. But the trick is that they're trying to push it so they can like get people to get monetized. And I mean, I'm all for the ideal of being monetized, but I also know that, some people do this knowing it's like, I'm not going to make a cent. And I think that was a big deterrent for me, because when I would get in my own head, and I spent in some cases like a couple $100 on shit, like new laptops and stuff like that. And I kind of realized it's like, I don't mind the tech side of it, but I also know that I know myself. I'm somebody, and I do it here and I do it on other shows that I do or have done, where I keep to the subject matter, but I speak from the heart. I don't take a lot of notes. I don't need to. A lot of it just comes from me being me, sometimes with the mood I'm in. And obviously, now I'm under the weather, so I'm making the most of it. But if I sound like a bag of smashed assholes, it's not a big shock. Like I said, it's all content. It's all content. It all comes together.
It is.
But to those who want to do this, I'm all for it. Like, and even if you don't think you're good at it, and even if you stop doing it, I think at some point you have to kind of pull the trigger and go, let's see what happens. And the beauty about podcasting is because it's accessible. It's essentially free. If you do it in a very kind of makeshift, if not guerrilla way, you don't spend a lot. Obviously, one of the big uphill battles with podcasting is that, because remember, internet radio didn't take right away. Podcasting didn't either, because a lot of people thought that the internet, social media would actually kill radio. And like many things we've learned over the years, especially being same essentially generationally, is that this stuff doesn't kill this stuff out and out. It just refocuses it, reintegrates it. And that's where like talk radio, podcasting, streaming radio, things like that, because it's kind of like, well, it's like back in the 70s and 80s when they thought automatic tellers, ATMs, was going to kill the banking industry and you were going to not have banking as we know it. And it's like, well, no, the two are going to find a common ground, and they have. There are people who do other jobs outside of just, what the ATM can offer. The ATM offers obviously, efficiency and access. But remember, the banks were like, well, yeah, we're all for this. And the reason why more than anything, and it wasn't to replace bank tellers, but it was to find a way to charge up fees. So when you go to Vegas and you need money to put in the slot machine, they're going to charge you $9 to use their goddamn ATM so you can pay $9 on your own money.
Right. Oh, by the way, you said something, and I should point it out. anybody that does have a show idea, if you're looking for a platform, and I know Theo said the Gorilla thing is free, but I don't charge people to do stuff here either, and you have like the StreamYard access and all that good stuff. Just send me an email, mike@rabbitinredradio.com.
That's a lie. You should see the torture he puts me through. He once had me naked in the corner of a basement with rubber bands around my testes, and he had me listen to Nickelback for 24 hours straight.
I mean, you know, that sounds
I
like
was 23. He had me take a shit.
Well, yeah, that's oh, by the way, I feel like I should show you this. See with my daily drinker now?
Hey! I love that thing.
It's my daily drinker. Thank you very much.
You are most welcome. Oh yeah, that jumped off the page to me. I was like, oh yeah, that's happening.
That was great. First time I drank out of it though, I put tea in it, like hot tea, and I nearly burned my hand off. And I realized, you know what? It's not a good idea to put hot stuff in it because it'll burn me. So now I just
weird, right?
Yeah, right. So now I just I usually drink water otherwise, so that's what I put in there. That's my,
see, you figured it out.
I did after nearly burning myself, but well, I did, but
no. When it comes to podcasting, it's something I adore, and you know, when I was in college, when I was growing up and stuff, and I loved radio, obviously listened to radio a great deal growing up. You know, the ideal of podcasting always sat with me in such a way where I was like, you know, I would love to be able to do this. And for a lot of people, it's very difficult because, especially doing a solo podcast, because I know people who do podcasts with people, and it's crazy to think that when you get them alone, they shut down. Where it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean I'm supposed to talk? Yeah, it's kind of the point to all this. You gotta be a chatty Cathy, and a lot of people, like, they kind of fold onto themselves. Like, I can't, you know, like, I can't do that. It's like, yeah, actually you can. And the reason why I know that is because I talk to myself all the fucking time.
Oh,
it's just a matter of, well, let me put, you know, a little music on, or let me put a little microphone, a little music in there. Same effect. So, no, that's what I love about this medium, is just, it's, you know, people tend to forget, even with like most celebrities and stuff like that, like, it all stems from them. It's all inspired from stuff, but especially on something like podcasting, you know, things that are really just you, a representation of you, it has to stem from that. That's where kind of the genuineness to podcasting comes into play. That's why I'm more of a person who enjoys, like, perfect example, and I think I've mentioned it before, but Kevin Smith, I don't know if he still does it, but he used to do this thing called Wake and Bake, which was like 20 minutes in the morning. He did a show talking about his day, and he did it almost every day.
Right.
And that's about as unscripted as it gets. I don't think he's doing it anymore because he stopped smoking weed. So, but I think it makes a clear point as to when you do this, what to expect. Especially if you do it solo. I love doing solo podcasts. Sometimes it's just a matter of just getting my head there. Because even like when I was doing bingo and like public events for like a long time, it is very, very tricky some days to put on a brave face and go up and be like, hey, I'm happy. And it's like, no, you're not. Look like shit. Fuck are you doing on a stage? Get the fuck down. So that's kind of the yay and nay of that kind of stuff. So, but once again, the Crow, if you need a giggle, yeah, I went there. I went back to there. If you need a giggle just for the sake of a giggle, go for it. It is one. It is one of those things you're just like, what?
I don't think I need a giggle for the sake of a giggle. That's just no. I mean, the only reason that I would even watch like a minute or 2 or 5 is just to see Bill Skarsgård do it. But that's it. Like, and I don't even think, from what you're saying, he doesn't even redeem it. So it doesn't,
He is doing his best, and I'm not in any way. He's doing his best, but he does look lost, and that's saying something for a guy who played fucking Pennywise.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you're playing a character where it's like, there's no acting school for that. There's no, oh, this is what should be your inspiration. No. You play something like Pennywise, that's an all-in affair. And whatever way you take with that character, you're going for it. Whatever may come of that, you're going for it. And he pulled off an amazing Pennywise. And I fucking hate clowns passionately, but he went all for it. And here there's this almost opposite point to that, where you feel like he would go all out, and he really doesn't, because he doesn't know which way to go. One thing that made Brandon Lee's performance so great was the glimpses, the bits of dark humor about his own situation. Or even he, and he didn't shit on himself. It wasn't satirical, but it was a little tongue in cheek, where it's like, here I am in this, situation that defies all odds of logic, all points of logic, all points of science, but here I am.
Yeah.
And it makes for making the character not just likable, but understandable. Like, I think if any of us were resurrected just out of the clear blue with no reasoning outside of a crow that technically, communicates with him, I mean, we would all just be like, wait, what? Like, we would be thrown. And then once it settles in, we kind of would have to accept it. And the way Eric accepts a lot of it is, or, Brendan Lee's character accepts it as just, okay, like this is where I'm at. This is what's happening. And I think that's why so much of it works, because there's still pieces of his humanity. There's still pieces of him being able to, somehow laugh at this, even though it's kind of this gory, dark kind of fable, revenge tale of what he's going to do. And he's still, some of the, and some of the way he would process, like in some of the lines, like one of the best ones was, you killed Tintin. They were all dead. They all died a year ago in a loft. As soon as they put their hands on her, they all died. They just don't know it yet. So that's why a lot of that character works. In the case of Bill Skarsgård version, it feels very disconnected because he doesn't know what to do. So he plays it all very straight. And like this stoicness of like just being so like taking it almost too seriously. Because once again, there's a very tricky line because there's no playbook for an actor. There's no reference like, oh, well, I had this happen once. So when I was doing my performance, I thought of this. There's nothing to hand to an actor and go, okay, here. Fucking Elia Kazan, pioneered this technique to think about what it would be to kind of be technically a revenge zombie. It's like nobody has that published as far as fucking acting workshops or anything to that effect. It just doesn't exist. So you got to kind of find it on your own, and you got to know where that character lies. Those are one of those that really, the character is beyond the page of the script, where you read it and you go, okay, I know what the line says, but what should that line become? What should it represent when you kind of speak these lines? And that gets very tricky. And in the case of Bill Skarsgård, there's none of that there. He plays it so straight, I feel like, because he didn't know what else to do. I feel like his direction probably wasn't the best. He probably didn't have the best compass for whatever reason. And whatever might have been there feels chopped up, because the movie feels pretty whittled down just to kind of get it over with, especially when you do come to that conclusion that, the Crow movie has the Crow for about 20 minutes total.
That's such a waste. I just don't understand how that even got past. It just seems like they really totally went in the wrong direction.
I think, like I said, I think somewhere in the midst of all of it, they just didn't know where to go. I think the studio knew that they had a stinker on their hands and it was going to bomb spectacularly, which it did. No one's surprised at that. It's just a waste. I feel bad for Bill Skarsgård because I think he's a pretty amazing actor and he has this fantastic presence. And he was just, this movie, he was just fucking wasted. Danny Houston also fucking wasted. The person, the girl who played Shelley, she may develop acting chops, but you could tell it was kind of her first gig. And once again, it's hard to get behind Eric's crusade because neither character is likable. It's weird how they spend so much time on a romance and you feel nothing. You don't feel like these people would be a couple. You don't feel them to be likable. You don't see, I guess the best way to put it is you don't see why he would come back. Because they talk about that if it's a love so powerful, it brings the soul back when it's unrest. And it's okay, they were together a weekend. They met in rehab, which is an ideal unto itself that I don't hate, because it's okay, well, then they went sober and they redeemed each other. Well, that's all great, but they don't, because when you meet them, when the clock starts ticking between when you meet the two characters, when they come together, to when they die and he starts going through this, supernatural metaphysical journey to eventually become the Crow with almost no movie left, you still don't know much about them. They don't seem to really feel for each other. It's funny how you spend so much time on something that doesn't connect to the audience. It doesn't work. At no point did I feel like these two were going to be a couple to endure, past, a supernatural level, if you will. I didn't buy it. Wow. I don't think the actors bought it. No. Yeah. Not much in the way of chemistry. And the characters themselves, they just don't look like they don't look like they would turn into that couple. The whole time you're just, what are they doing? They're supposed to be on the run and hiding, but they're what? They're in public a lot when you stop and think about it. So it was a case of them trying to take something, see if they could squeeze a few more bucks out of it. And to no surprise, they kind of stepped on their dicks, and the movie is losing money, and that's the second big flop this year, especially this summer for Lionsgate, because Borderlands is the same way. And these are movies that, like, I can honestly say, I think people forgot were being made.
Mhm.
Like, you see trailers and stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, somebody was gonna do that, huh? You guys still working on that? Oh, good for you. You're doing your movie stuff. Good job. Good for you.
Mhm.
There's a lot of that where you're just like, just shaking your head the whole time. Like, what were they going for? Nobody fucking knows. They don't know. It feels like the filmmakers don't know. So once again, we see it all the time. It's another classic case of they threw a lot of money at something for some reason, thinking it was going to come back around. Really didn't. No big shock. And also on another end of the spectrum, and I didn't look too deep into this. You're the one who told me about it. And this is where, I feel like a lot of things within this episode kind of cue into being inspired or uninspired. And a lot of what Hollywood does is uninspired. In the case of what I'm going to talk about ever so quickly next, and I say quickly, I mean quickly, but we're probably going to spend like another hour on this fucking thing. But at the end of the day, am I wrong?
No, you're probably not wrong.
It's what we do. It's what we fucking do.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's kind of like a necrophiliac. Oh my God, he fucked a dead person. That's what they do.
Yes, they do.
And I don't think there's really like a midpoint for that. Like, do they practice on a mannequin first and go, I got tired of being critiqued when I fuck. If I can get someone who isn't going to critique me while I fuck, but still they're technically someone, I can go in for that.
Yeah.
And like I've told you before, right? It's one of the nice things about being a necrophiliac. You never have to bring your date flowers. They're usually already there. Aww.
That's great.
Aww.
That's great. I love it.
The worst part about being a necrophiliac, right? How the fuck are you gonna get him back in the coffin?
Yeah. Oh my god. I love it.
Oh, I got another one. Are you ready for this one?
Yeah, what's this one?
What's the worst part about eating vegetables?
Shit. I'm drawing a blank.
Trying to put them back in the gurney so the nurse doesn't notice.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I gotta. Yes. Oh, that was good. Oh, look at you. I gotta
That's good.
earn my.
And you got it from the Burbs.
That's right.
Which perfectly, perfectly segues. To the fact that I learned something by way of producer Mike just a couple days ago. And look, I've seen some horrific shit. I think sooner or later we all have in some way, shape, or form. But
yes,
when we talk about the ideal of remakes, we think about the concept of, how do I put it? We think of the concept of things being somewhat sacred, at least to us. Doesn't necessarily mean that everybody finds it sacred, but we find it sacred. The Crow, the original with Brandon Lee, is a perfect example. Now, there is a movie that I loved as a kid.
Yes.
I love now. I think it is easily one of not just my favorites, but just most enjoyable movies, because when it came out, it wasn't exactly received well. It wasn't exactly treated with a lot of love. It's actually treated with a lot of disdain.
Yes.
It did premiere #1 that weekend, but it wasn't a big movie, and it didn't get the love it deserved. And I think the biggest reason for that is, and we've seen over time, that movies find sometimes their audience after the fact. It's not always during their initial run. It's funny how movies kind of go up and down, lose their favor in that sense. And one of those movies for little old me is the 1989 classic with Tom Hanks, and Carrie Fisher, and Bruce Dern. Still scares the shit out of me. He teaches his dog to crap on my yard. And for those who know, it's called The Burbs. That movie is so just well done in so many ways. And just rather impressive, I think. And I think when people saw it, they didn't get it. And, you know, the movie itself is kind of a somewhat satirical omission on the 80s, Reaganomics, the ideal of suburbia, the ideal of the American dream. And people kind of being put into, you know, this kind of box and what it's like, you know, because I think it made a lot of comments about the world that didn't just leave. Like, a lot of those ideals are still prevalent. And I live in a place like Utah, so trust me, I fucking know. Excuse me, how some of those people are. Where a lot of that stuff takes. Well, and I know there was a time where they had talked about it. There was never really talk of a sequel as far as I know, but sooner or later, people are going to find a way to come back to stuff for whatever reason. And I learned, thanks to producer Mike, that they are going to remake The Burbs into a Peacock series. Fucking exactly.
Had to.
Oh. Your comedic timing level, sir, is expert. No, nothing to apologize.
Sorry, I cut you off there.
Before. That was amazing. No, you're good. That was amazing. But yes, they are bringing. Oh yes, Mr. Nanners. Yes, The Burbs is amazing, and it is one of those movies. Like, it's such a product of its time, you know, and it fulfilled some of my enjoyment, like just the subject matter, and then the twists, and then of course Carrie Fisher is my wife. Like, yeah, that shit all tracks. But and it has some great lines too, you know. Red Rover, let Ray come on over.
And then take me to the hospital, I'm sick.
Yeah. I've been blown up. Take me to the hospital.
I used to have a lot more Burbs clips in here, but I do not have any more, unfortunately. Damn it.
No, I love that. Honey, are you okay? I do really like your new hair. Just that he's all bandaged up and... You know, I'm going to rebuild your house. You know, Carol's dad gave me these tools and I haven't used them. He's talking about a fucking little toolbox after blowing up a house. Great movie. Joe Dante at his finest in the 80s. Like, it's such... And it's something, look, once again, and this goes back to our previous conversation with The Crow, that we knew they were going to come back around to this.
Yeah.
But, one, you're turning it into a series. Okay, that should be interesting. And two, and I actually love Kiki Palmer, especially in Nope. But what direction are they going to go with this now? It just kind of weirds me out. And we talked about, the ideal of remakes or reboots. Nobody goes after movies that were shit that needs to be remade. They always try to remake the ones people know. And that's the big secret, because people are like, well, why don't they try to remake like fucking Police Academy 4? That's fucking terrible. Like, try to make a better version of that. Well, yeah, you know why? Because nobody remembers Police Academy 4 at that level. But they remember the Burbs, especially because the Burbs have become kind of a great cult classic. Oh, yeah. So I have to honestly say, the fact that we're now doing this and Universal is going to go with the Burbs, I just have to ask, and I'm not trying to plant this seed. If I read something in Variety 2 weeks later about this, I'm going to shit.
Yeah.
When are we getting a remake of Weekend at Bernie's?
It's going to happen. I think it's going to happen. It has to. And that's...
when are we going to get a remake of The Hidden? That would be a great one. I would love to see a remake of The Hidden.
Yeah, I mean, I love the original. I do love too. The original. But yeah, I mean that I could see. You know what else is another one? And this is a movie that I loved when I was younger, and I actually, I mean, did you ever hear of a movie called Slaughter High from 19?
Slaughter High?
Yes. It was shot in 84,
I know it.
but they released it in 86. Yes, I love that fucking movie. I don't know why I love that.
I know that movie.
I love that fucking movie. And
I like to see them release like Death Spa.
You know what? That would see something like that. They're gonna get
remake that movie.
Movies. Yeah, well, I think they will. Eventually they will. I mean, they did the Toxic Avenger, even though they're saying it's unreleasable, but I think that's a bunch of bullshit, because you could do straight to streaming, or you could do just do whatever you release it on.
They're doing that. I think they're looking at that for Salem's Lot on Max. But yeah, streaming. I mean, they'll put anything on streaming. How can you say something's just unreleasable? I mean, there's all kinds of shit movies out there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, to kind of make the case for that is like weird.
Yeah, I don't understand it either. It's just like, well, Warner Brothers is canceling all these movies now because they're tax write-offs or whatever, like that Coyote versus Acme or whatever.
I would have loved that.
Yeah, no,
that actually sounded funny as hell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was down for it.
Yeah, that's annoying. We didn't get that. Oh my! Why is my antivirus stuff popping up right now? That's not great. Okay. So, anyone that's watching, is there any movies that you don't think should be remade? Because if you toss those out, then maybe we can discuss those until Theo returns. Let's see. I gotta get out of there. There we go. I could just play a bunch of clips until it comes back in, but that's not fun. Nobody wants to see that. I don't know. The Burbs thing really kind of freaks me out because I love the movie so much, and Nares, I know you said you love the movie as well. I mean, I don't know a person that does not love the Burbs. So I'm really surprised that we're getting this series that I bet will probably go. It seems like it's going to go in a more of a murder mystery type thing. I don't know. That's what I'm gathering from it. Let me see here. Mm, there was other stuff I was going to bring up with him. I can't remember. Yeah, no, but I just... Oh, wait. I should just have the comments open. I mean, I certainly do agree with you, Mr. Let me put this up. Yes, I do agree that they're going to do that one of these days because, number one, they're going to remake Star Wars because Disney needs to keep milking that cow for as much as it's worth. So they'll definitely keep that up. I wouldn't be surprised if they remade 4, 5, and 6 next up. I bet you they'll do that. Craziness. What I have to do is I have to start loading trailers in here for instances where I lose Theo because I suck. I don't do solo casts at all. I never have. Well, and I can't say never will because I'm doing one right now. But for the most of the... shit. Let me see here. You know what? I'm going to play the B-Movie TV thing again. We'll be back.
Looking for all your favorite B-movies in one place? Look no further than B-Movie TV exclusively on Roku. We've got action, horror, sci-fi, sleaze, and independent wrestling. Plus, exclusive hosted shows like Friday Night Action, Saturday Night Terrors, Merry Death subbed and dubbed Horror Fest, Sci-Fi Sideshow, and Pervy the Clown Show. So get in on all the craziness that is B-Movie TV.
Cripple, 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 cripple! Damn it!
They don't give a fuck about.
You tough guy, huh? You fucking man, you fucking You run, motherfucker! Tough guys, huh? Tough guy! You and your fucking brother! You fucking scumbag! No more!
There we go. I left some of those clips in there from a while ago. Let's see. Oh, you know what? That's a great idea, Mr. Nanners. I should play the Hellvira trailer. That's a great thought. I have to... I didn't bring it in here, but you know what? We'll share the screen. So, yeah, that's a good idea. While we wait for Theo to get back here. YouTube, Dink, and horror. I hear somebody's coming back in here.
Oh, I am back.
Well, that's good.
Oh God. Oh.
Are you hold on. Are you surviving? Are you okay?
I don't know. I'm doing my best, but I don't know.
If you feel like you think you're gonna lose it, we can expedite the Hellvira talk so then that way.
Let's do that, please.
Yeah, because Nanners actually suggested where.
Yes. I'm doing my best, folks, but yeah, let's cut to the chase.
Yeah, I don't want to. Look.
I'm sorry. I'm so happy to be back, but oh my goodness, my stomach is ripping me a new one. Oh.
Oh geez. Do you have like a minute before we start talking about this so I can play the trailer real quick?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
We'll
I'll manage for a little while longer.
Okay, just. Is that up there? Oh shit! Hold on. I didn't hit save. Did I? No. Wait, did I share the screen? I didn't share the screen, did I?
I didn't see it. I didn't see it shared.
No, I have to hit share because I'm a stupid son of a stupid.
You're fine.
There
we go. I think we're tracking.
Okay, here we go.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
In the shadows, she's a whisper. Hellvira's her name. Midnight scream or haunting dreams. Nothing is the same. Lips like venom, blood so cold. Heart like bonfire. Cloud page grinning horns. Flash, blazing hellfire. Strobe like slicing darkness. Hellfire calling. Neon red eyes glowing, watch your world stop falling. When the cackle cuts the silence, fills it with a sin. Seduces souls a siren, draws you right in. Hellfire's mistress of midnight, she steals the soul, you're frozen in fright. Succubus in a cloud's disguise, makes you laugh and says goodbye. Fingers made of fire, touching with desire. In the abyss, she whispers dark and dire. Every jester's laugh hides a deeper scream. Hellfire reigns in your waking dream.
Yes.
Oh shit! I cut it. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Damn it.
Boy, we're just a mess.
I'm feeling your tummy trouble.
I was gonna say.
No, I'm
Yeah,
not. I mean,
your shit's
I'm-
all
I'm-
over the place. I can't stop shitting. Oh God, what are we doing?
It's just a craziness thing. But see,
that's where Christopher Walken would chime in. Wow, it's wacky. It's here now, Mike. You can't do shit right. And Theo, everywhere he takes a shit. Shit everywhere.
Oh, I love it.
You should see the cleaning bills of the carpet. They're outrageous.
I love it. It's my favorite. Oh shit! That's
Fucking
great.
amazing trailer, of course. And what I love about trailers like that is they don't shy away from the reason why you would watch ass and zombie orgies.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, you can't go wrong. You
Hats
really
off to Morgan. I was fortunate enough to see it. I loved it. I love banana shit. I'm not going to get no spoilers, nothing else, but I love shit that's just off the wall and exists in its own space. And yes, the ass shots are
Yes.
but just the absolute just craziness of this kind of stuff. And I love things like this. You know, we talked about earlier in the show, you know, the ideal of inspiration. And I'm huge on that because I think it's weird how much of that is missing from actual, you know, actual creativity, because there's just so much accessibility to be able to do things. But I look at stuff like this and it makes me happy inside. And I got to watch it and it made me even happier inside, because when people do things that are really true unto themselves, that's how you get, you know, stuff like Repo the Genetic Opera, which I love. That was one of those great movies where I didn't know what the fuck I was watching. I actually watched it during its very limited theatrical run. And part of it was because it was from the guy who did the Saws. And I'm watching this. I was one of the few people that actually watched this thing at a theater. And I went, what's going on? What am I what am I doing?
Mhm.
What? And then, which helps even kind of up the ante to make it even more enjoyable, is the and especially with those type of movies and shows, is watching everybody around you. You know, crowd reaction can make some experiences better than they are. That's part of the beauty of it at times.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
definitely.
but yes,
And
Morgan, fucking amazing. I hats off to you, sir. Congratulations. Yeah, ass shots.
and
That's how you.
there is
That's how
a,
you sell. That's how you sell a fucking trailer, baby.
Yeah, no, I mean that's and you know, and that's the thing that I liked about it as well, is because it is very unique, and I don't see many people that are doing something like that. And honestly, there was a show that aired. It was local to Philly on Saturday nights at like 1 a.m. after Saturday Night Live. And it was called Saturday Night Dead, and it was hosted by Stella, the man-eater of Manayunk.
I love
And
those.
yeah, and she would just like show these old horror movies, and you know have like the little interludes, just like Hellvira. I mean, Hellvira was more raunchy, you know, was made for a more adult audience, but like you know that's. But I'm just saying, like it really did take me back to my childhood in a sense, and you know being able to stay up after SNL in the 80s, and I was like, wow, this is, you know, cool. So, you know, Morgan, I commend you for that, because you really gave me a slice of my childhood back, and I look forward to what you're going to continue to do with the character.
Well, I look at stuff like that, and one thing that I get big enjoyment out of from that is it reminds me. So the ones I grew up with was like Kung Fu theater and kind of these like storyteller and almost even like, you know, what Peter Vincent was in Fright Night, where you have kind of based around, you know, these type of anthologies, these type of tellings with, you know, this type of character that is, you know, kind of the master storyteller, but also the focal point. Like it's not just what's shot around it. It's also the ideal of what else is there. You know what I mean? As far as how they do it, because it also, I mean, things like this too also make me happy, because it reminds me of probably one of my favorite shows of all time. And having seen it, like I can definitely attest to that in a very positive way, where there was a lot of those beats where it was like, oh, you took me back. Was Tales from the Crypt and the Crypt Keeper.
Yes.
And just how, you know, his spinning of the tales, like the intro and the outro, the two bookend points with him, made it work so well. Right. Now, to be fair, as much as I enjoyed the Crypt Keeper, didn't have no ass shots like what we got in the trailer, baby.
No. And also, like the effects that you, for an indie film, like the visual effects, like with the Dave the Stoner character, that, I mean, when you see,
oh yeah, like, that shit had me going. I was like,
yeah, I mean, it was like, wow. I mean, I didn't even do like any edible or anything at that point. I was just like, whoa, am I seeing what I'm seeing, or am I not seeing what I see? I don't know. This is, yeah, really love it.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. So much of that stuff that was just so great and so well done, and looking to see, you know, what comes to be more with the character, but just kind of seeing how Morgan intends to kind of expand on it, because I love, so this kind of also going a little bit back to Tales from the Crypt reminds me of like when they did the movies.
Oh yeah,
when they, you know, They did Demon Knight and Bordello of Blood. And Bordello of Blood is easily one of my favorite batshit crazy movies, because it's like, where else am I gonna find? Where else are you gonna find Angie Everhart and Dennis Miller, who at the time I was a huge fan of, in those type of settings? You know what I mean?
Right. Oh yeah.
So yeah, those movies were fucking great. So this definitely takes that direction. And the character, and one thing too is that characters, you know, good, bad, or indifferent, as far as like what they're framed as, has to be engaging. You know, you know, it's a matter of how you build with the character, but also the audience has to want to stay tuned in. And that can go from one end of the spectrum to the other, because Rod Sterling is easily one of the most, you know, engaging types of all all time. And the guy sat there with a cigarette, you know, with a hair full of pomade. And it was just how, with also, you know, Hellvira, this character, it's how you engage the audience. Obviously, Hellvira is on the far end of the spectrum, tuned up to 11, and you wouldn't want it any other way.
No, because that's just, you know, how she is, and it's what makes the character. If she was any more like toned down, then it wouldn't work.
Oh yeah,
like she.
And of course, in horror genre, like, you know, over the topness plays extremely well, especially for like a host type of character, which is obviously what she is. But also, another glowing review from me here is that ass, baby. I'm a simple creature when it comes to stuff like that, especially in that type of kind of almost subgenre to horror. It's like, yeah. Oh, I'll stay for your movie, but yeah. Now I know why you put her in stripes, Morgan. I see what you did there. You know why? So you can follow it all the way down.
I mean, it's hey, if that's how you sell a movie. That's just how it works. It's great though. It really, you know.
Oh yeah, and visually catches the eye. Like, you know, that's one thing where, because I think, you know, for many of us, especially in what is essentially a visual medium, like, it's what catches the eye. It's like, oh, you know, I'm terrified, but I'm drawn in, and you're confusing my erection in that good way. Please continue. And that's important. You know, I think that's kind of what helps draw people in.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. It's just, you know, and the short that he made before this one is actually, like, you know, it's a nice precursor, because it just introduces you to the world, and then you kind of like just go from there. The link to buy the DVD or Blu-ray is in the show notes, and it'll be on iTunes and all that stuff when the audio thing gets posted. I'll put a link on the website itself, but definitely grab it, because it's really something. And also join Morgan's group at Black Pyramid Studios, because he is, you know, if you're trying to audition, if you want to get into film, I believe people in that group get first crack at auditions for roles in the upcoming film or upcoming projects, or how that works.
Yes, and he's got stuff. So he posted stuff about getting people for roles and stuff. I shared that. And at the moment, just to let y'all know, I'm feeling pretty good. The most recent injection of Alka-Seltzer is helping, so I can hang on for a little bit. And I'm not sitting on a towel, so if I have to shit myself, yeah, I mean, I'll do it for the fans. No, just kidding. No, this is the kind of stuff that I really enjoy, and definitely check out the group. and as well as the short, because it's so it's so interesting to see how, especially now on streaming, like there's so many things that just are on there, and it's gotten kind of interesting how so much is just thrown. And I watch some of this stuff because I'm like, okay, I'm curious. But the last thing I see more than anything is just the ideal of somebody wanting to make something to just enjoy. Like a lot of these kind of newer, smaller, independent, kind of, kind of making the back of a hobby shop kind of cinema. What I think is missing is just the fun and the ingenuity. A lot of these productions try to really take themselves seriously and try to make something that's very, just like they're really trying to punch above their weight class. And in the case of horror, and we've talked about it before here, what makes it great, and Hellvira and everything Morgan's doing with this that I really love is that horror is really like the punk rock. Is really like the punk rock of film genres. It is very much a case of you use what you got, but with what you have, where you want to go. And within something that may feel like a limitation, it actually ends up being more of a freedom. When you know what you can't do, you tend to look at what the opportunities are. And that's where imagination frees up. Where, hey, I can do this. I may not be able to do that, but I can still get, like, I don't have to go A to B. I can go A to X because I can't get to B. B is the path of least resistance, but I'd have to throw money at it. Well, I can only throw this much at it. So if I go to X, I find myself in a predicament that isn't really a predicament. It ends up turning more into a blessing, to where it's like, hey, I didn't know I could do that. I didn't think of that. You put yourself in situations as a filmmaker and a creator to expand your own mind as well as your skill set. And a lot of it is on the fly. Yeah. A lot of it is, I didn't know that was an option. I didn't know I can make that. Yeah, you can. It's kind of nice when you kind of learn that kind of stuff about yourself, and you realize that you can find a way to do something, especially when people are like, well, it'll cost this. You can't do that. Well, what if I do this? No, you can't do that either. I think for a lot of us, when people say no, or people say they don't like something, it can become a motivator. I know for a lot of people, it feels like a shutdown. Like, oh no, they said I can't do this and da 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 da. But at the end of the day, it's like, no, what do you want? Like, this is the kind of stuff I really enjoy. And Morgan, once again, congratulations, because it's masturbatory. It's what you want, and it's kind of on the terms you want it, and that's what's always as a genre, even going into the sub genres of the genre of horror. That's what makes it so great, because it can be this playground where you can kind of just play in. Things don't have to be very specific.
Well, yeah. And he said he wanted to make movies that he enjoys, and that's the key. Because if you don't enjoy it and your enjoyment doesn't come through on the screen, then no one else is going to enjoy it either.
Well,
so that's important.
Well, right here, Mr. Naners, I got right here. Half of film is making compromises for the time, for half the time, over stuff you can't control. Absolutely, and I think that's where you learn to thrive, though, especially in a genre like horror. And it's interesting, especially, and I've said this before on the show, and I think this is absolutely true. Filmmaking, podcasting, they're kind of snapshots of where you were at the time. When you look at like Raiders and you look at like the original Star Wars, they had constraints, not just money wise, but they had constraints within the space of what technology would allow, not just the money they had or didn't have. It was a case of this is what technology will allow at this time. Maybe in 40, 50 years, it'll look different. But they're different when that technology came along. So it always begs the question, like, well, if they had that technology then, what would we get? Because we know, we've seen it with the Star Wars prequels, and we've seen it with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and other things that Spielberg has done, that when the technology is kicked in, where they don't have to worry about having to think something through, they can just hit a button, or they can hire an entire office of animators to hit buttons. You lose the concept of looking into yourself to pull the creativity out of you. And I can only imagine as a filmmaker, like, it's like a stress test, because a lot of it is literally, okay, shit, even with pre-production, I can't do this, I can't do that, where do I go? And I can imagine sometimes for you, good sir, it's probably frustrating as fuck, because it's something you do as a passion, and then when you take passion and you unfortunately have to apply some sense of reality to it, you find yourself in that position where it's like, well, this isn't a passion anymore, what the fuck am I doing? But that's where you're put to the test, and that's where you find yourself learning about yourself, where you're like, oh yeah, I may not be able to do this, but I don't necessarily have to show this, but I can convey a point. And in doing so, I can take this route to get to the same conclusion. And I can only imagine, like, how much of it is compromising, especially when, one, obviously, I mean, I can only imagine there's probably like a handful of, creative endeavors at that level that actually go smoothly, because the X factor is always prevalent. You always, you don't expect things to go a certain way. There's going to be hiccups, but then the hiccups turn into something and you go, wait, I didn't think it was going to be that kind of a hiccup. I mean, one of the biggest make it up on the fly things that kind of come to mind, and I've obviously talked about this movie a great deal on the show, is Apocalypse Now. Brando was one of those actors that knew how to make Hollywood squirm in their seat, and he'd get paid for it. Because, yeah, the guy was an absolute creator as an actor, but it was kind of a shit human being, in my opinion, from what I've gathered.
That's what I've heard.
But this is a guy who showed up to a set of a war movie, Apocalypse Now, one of my all-time favorites, not prepared, severely overweight, didn't read the script that he was supposed to be a part of, didn't read the original book, prepared for this thing in no way, and still wanted more money. And it literally turned into a panic on Coppola's part, because he had already gone way over budget on this movie. And it was like, I'm going to see this to the end. And finally, he shot Brando from the dark, had him in a black t-shirt, shaved his head. That's why he shot mostly in shadow. So you can't make out that this guy who's supposed to be this tough guy military leader, is actually like 300 pounds. Right. And every line, just about every line, is absolutely ad-libbed, where it was like, I'll just turn the camera on and see what this crazy fat fuck says. And some of the dialogue is actually verbal kind of middle fingers to Coppola himself. And Coppola was the one that put that man back on the map 2 times over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Between the first Godfather and... Because remember, Hollywood was willing to pay for the guy. And Brando, in his defense and not defense, knew what he could get away with. But the more they paid him, the more he was like, well, what can I get away with? Because a perfect example is Island of Dr. Moreau. Can you believe that motherfucker made $9 million for the Island of Dr. Moreau?
I cannot.
He is deplorable in it. I mean,
You know,
he was so removed from his days as being like an absolute cinema badass, but you had New Line Cinema cutting that check to a guy who wouldn't read the script, who wouldn't come to set, who would have to have his lines read to him through an earpiece from a PA. And then, no, this even gets better. So the PA, or so the radio system would pick up traffic, like police scanners.
Mhm.
And it would cut out what the PA would read. So he would read, you know, officer down, send assistance. You know, shit like that. Like, you're like, what the fuck? But it goes back to, like, you know, you find a way to figure it out. Like, you know, he said, the compromises, like, in between all the conflict, like, you know, in between trying to get to the surface and find out what that happy medium is going to be to pull off something you can do. You know, once you get to the other side, I would have to say, good sir, you probably feel relieved. But to get to that point, like that struggle in between, I mean, half the time you must be banging your head against a brick wall, like, damn, motherfucker. Like, why do I do this to myself? But in the end, when you see what you've made and you're like, I did this, look at this, you know, that kind of great joy, that pride, like an 8-year-old making macaroni art. I mean, I'm not trying to simplify the art form. I'm just saying, like, you feel good and you want people to enjoy it too, as well as receive it. And yeah, this was a blast, man. And I love the trailer because the trailer is like an explosion, you know, it's like, yeah, you know, you want it. That great kind of just, you know, pulpy, scrappy, just type of horror done from, you know, the point of view of kind of your storyteller. Or as I'll, you know, from now on, I'll just call her dead ass. I mean, I'm not trying to be a total pig here, but you know, I'll call it what it is, folks.
Our friend Cripple Cody would be proud of you.
Aw.
He's a big ass man, so he would enjoy your sentiment.
Hell yeah. Look at it this way. Here's the way I see it. It's literally macaroni art. Will that be the next name of your movie? Macaroni art. Don't get it mushy. No, I'm with Cody on that. Like, when I come to thinking of like booties, like ass, I think of it this way. You know, I used to be a vegan, but even then, I know nobody wants a thin steak. So,
Jesus Christ.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
Like, I mean, you know, I'm not sizist in any way. I love all body types, but for some people, like, you look and I mean, for me, it almost feels like almost unhealthy. Like, I almost feel for them. And if they're good with it, who the fuck am I? And I'll admit that. And probably people would be saying that too. Like, who the fuck am I? But I also know, like, it just seems unhealthy. But who doesn't like a little pushing for the cushion? You know?
Well, yeah, true.
It's not about the size of the rise, baby. It's about that motion in that ocean. And like, too skinny is like, I don't want to fuck a tongue depressor. Get splinters on my wee-wee, you know?
Yeah, or you'd break it.
But no, what's been done with this character so far is pretty fucking awesome, and I'm looking forward to what comes next. You can use that as like a review quote. Theo said it's pretty fucking awesome. Love Theo.
Yes.
I always put that, love Theo. That's from one of my favorite, Rita Rudner. She was a comedian for many years. But Rita Rudner, I loved her. One of my favorite bits from her was what did she say? I've always been bad with money. When I started having a checkbook, I used to sign my checks, love Rita. Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's great. I'll have to look her up. Because I don't think I've actually if I did ever see that bit, I don't remember it, but I'll have to look her up. Don't mind me, I'm just getting off my knees. Whew.
Not the first time you told me that.
Not at all. That's the best place to be. Well, no.
Good times.
Yes.
I love that he put that. It's literally macaroni. but I can imagine that actually, and I really was not trying to downplay any of it, but I can imagine sometimes it feels that way, especially when you do a production in such a way to where it has to feel pieced together, and you do overcome compromises, or there has to be a lot of that. Okay, I'm going to take this and place it here. Like the narrative obviously will stay the same as far as the script, and obviously changes will happen for whatever reason, probably in production, even post-production. But when you kind of reach that point where things aren't working and you have to find another avenue to take, it must feel a little bit that way, where it's like, okay, now I got to get this there, and I gotta put this guy and.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And if you really want to see macaroni art, please, I've made a lot of it over the years. So yeah, that's real macaroni art. I've gotten overly wet a multitude of times. Yes.
Did you say overly wet?
Yeah, overly wet. I don't know. I probably said that wrong. I don't know if I said something.
Sir, what are you doing to your macaroni? And sir, keep your pants on.
Well,
sir, stop fucking the macaroni.
No, can't do it.
I don't care if it's spiral cut and ripped for your pleasure.
Hey, that's the only way to be.
Hey, it's rigatoni, not fuckatoni.
Oh shit, that's great.
It's macaroni art with a passion. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's a t-shirt waiting to happen, man. It's macaroni art with a passion. But that's such a fair point. Like, it has to stem from that. And I can imagine how tricky that must be over time, where you want it to resonate, and it just doesn't, where it's like, yep, that didn't work. And that must be part of the trick, as far as like not just learning, but also finding a way to keep your head up.
Yeah, that's gotta be a big thing, I'm sure. Because discouraging, but working through, when you get discouraged or you get down about how things are going, if they're not going your way, and then still pushing against that or pushing through that adversity, that's it's a big thing.
Well, and it gets tricky too, because we hear about it all the time in the industry as a whole, be it big or small, where what people set out for and hope for is not what comes of it, and people like leave industries. They know there's going to be like hiccups and hangups and issues, but when they finally get down to it and they're like, oh God, is this what I signed up for? Like, what the hell? Why is this? That must be so much to kind of undertake, and so difficult to kind of bend your head around, and nothing but kudos to kind of keep your head up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Because that can't be an easy task, like, at all.
No.
Because for some filmmakers, it's like, how do you? Because I can imagine, like, even like I talk about podcasting, and like making a film, like, it's almost no comparison. But I can imagine how much you can get in your own head, and then turn around and go, okay, so how am I going to do this? How am I going to make this work and happen? And yeah, I can imagine just what a sticky wicket it is to be able to kind of like, okay, I'm going to keep my head on straight. I can still do this. Especially when you're kind of in the middle of it. Like, it's overwhelming at times. Absolutely, good sir. Like, anybody who makes anything, like, and people obviously are going to have their opinions, but it's a lot of people who have the very strong negative opinions who don't know. They don't. They take it for granted. It's like, well, I got this served up to me. Like, this is this is the entertainment. This is what happens when people get spoiled and they don't appreciate what a filmmaker or a creator or an artist goes through to kind of make things happen. They don't see it by the fundamentalness. They see it as the, oh, well, they did a thing and I didn't like it. And of course, people are allowed to their opinions. But I always look at it from all angles, knowing a lot of how the sausage gets made or doesn't get made. And I think with a lot of things of that nature, yes, they very much have to, like, the product has to stand on its own, but also it's weird how people have like these spoiled expectations now where it's like, well, it better be what I want. And it's like, well, not all entertainment's for everybody, but you have to be able to appreciate it on its whole. And then people are like, well, I didn't like this for this reason. And it's like, well, that's where I go back to the behind the scenes, knowing what I know, and not just the research I've done, but the people I know who make things, filmmakers, podcasters, musicians, who there's a lot of times where it can feel not just overwhelming, but it also feels like a writer with a blank page. Like, you can apply anything to this, or you can apply nothing to this. But also when you're in the trenches, especially with filmmaking, and like he said, it's overwhelming at times when you hit kind of roadblocks where it's like, oh shit, well, this can't happen. What do I do now? This can't happen this way. What do I do now? And those are some very, very difficult points to pull off, because sometimes the answer isn't as apparent. Sometimes the answer isn't a magic bullet fix. It's not just oh, well, yeah, I foreseen this was going to happen, but then it ended up going this way. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't just present itself.
Right.
I was extremely lucky. So this is from Mr. Naters. I was extremely lucky to have the cast I did. Danny Langston saved this movie. He volunteered his time and money to help us make it. Same with Chandra Rawlings, who made Nurse Daphne my new favorite. And that's another great point that you bring up, good sir, is that especially, it's one vision, but it does take a creative process where no one's really an island. And isn't it great when you have people that come together and believe in what you do and know that sometimes, even as kind of the center of it, as the creator, if you will, even you have to get kind of brought across the finish line, the tush push, if you're into sports terminology. But it is one of those things sometimes where you do find yourself, like he said, he was extremely lucky with his cast and the production, to where he had people who not only believed, but made sure to kind of, if I gather this right, kind of dust you off to make sure you can get across. And that is all we can ever hope for. I think I've been fortunate being a podcaster where I've had people who've helped pick me up. But we're talking about like a film production, that's like 30 times of what we do, especially when you have multiple things that may not be going soundly, and you find yourself in a predicament to where, if that isn't handled, I can't do this. And if I can't do that, then the house of cards falls apart altogether. So it sounds like you had some great people, get your back, but also see what you saw in what you do and believe in you. And isn't that like the best feeling in the world, when you feel you're not 100% and you're not performing 100%, especially for yourself, and you have people that are understanding and have that capacity to go, hey, you don't see it yet, but we're going to help you see it.
Right. And on the opposite end of that, you know, there's probably people that show up too, and they just look at it as like a job. You know, they like, we're doing this, or I'm doing this. We'll shoot for so many hours. We'll shoot a page or 2 pages, or you know, whatever, and then I'm gonna go home for the day, or I'm done for the day, and then I'll see you tomorrow morning. And then they're like someone who was just that, you know what I mean? Like, they don't see the bigger picture. They just see their part. You know what I mean? Like, they're part of the puzzle, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, and those types of people. Yeah.
Well, and that's what's so great about passion, and when passion is realized, because in so many cases, you know, I think as a creator, as people who help kind of, you know, sustain, invigorate the process, kind of help make us things happen, we want people who not only just want to give their time, money, their efforts, but somewhere between those 3 points, I think at the center has to be they believe in it.
Right.
You know, there has to be that point where it's like, well, yeah, this matters. And not just like, well, you know, we may see it as we're making Citizen Kane, but it has to be something where everybody's like, yes, we're going to complete this. Why? Because we feel this needs to be completed. Like, this matters to us. We believe in it so much so to where, you know, we're able to kind of pour a belief into it. And in many cases, I can only imagine, good sir, Mr. Nainer, sorry, that's just fun to say. It is hard to find people who are going to do that for you. It is very hard to find people that is going to go to bat in such a way to where they, you know, will do almost what you might find to be the unaskable, where it's like, hey, I'm going to do this so I can make this happen for you.
Right.
No, that's too much. No, it's not too much. I'm going to give, you know, I kind of think with stuff like this, especially production, somebody like Will Freakin, who we had a show about, we love dearly, and we miss him dearly, but he was 100% guy. He was one of those guys that was like, you show up to set, you give 100% because I'm going to give 100%. And sometimes it feels like there needs to be a little more than 100%, especially in the kind of productions where you got to be scrappy, you got to be tough, you got to be resourceful. And there's nothing better than when you surround yourself with people who, when you're looking at the floor going, fuck, I can't do this. They're gonna, you know, physically or metaphorically hold you up and pick up your chin and go like, yeah, you can. Like, I followed you for a reason. I saw what you saw. Maybe you can't see it at this second, but it's still there. You might have lost a little sight of it. Might have got a little blurry. Put it in your, you know, clean your contacts. You'll see it. But they're going to help you see it. And I think that's all we ever want, especially when we're creating something. Because anytime we put ourselves out there, it's a hold your ass moment. And I'm not even talking about as other people see things after we complete them. It's in the middle of the process. I can only imagine, good sir, that there must be so many instances where you're like, okay, this is going to work, right? Right? And you have that kind of squint moment where you like back away, kind of like Don Cheadle in Ocean's 11, where he's ready to push the button and he kind of turns and he holds his nuts, not sure what's going to happen with the pinch in the van, and you kind of just, you brace and you're like, all right, we're here. I got to push this button. Click. And then what happens. And I can only imagine sometimes you're just hanging on hope. Like, okay, I set up everything for this. This is going to work, right? 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 You know?
Yeah.
And that's what's so great. And that's what's so great about these type of productions and horror. And that's why they're so synonymous, is that they do come from people who are like, you know, clawing their way up. Like, I'm going to fucking do this. Like, this is something I got, you know, some things inspired me and they gelled together And in that gelling, this was formed, this Hellvira, and then everything that's built around it. So just enjoyably well, especially at that type of point in kind of the subgenre of horror with the anthology stuff where you're telling the stories and you're doing it from the point of view. And then you have all this madness kind of play that stems from the character as well as kind of permeates the characters around her. Like, that's the shit. That's the enjoyable stuff. That's why I love horror. And that's why I love the type of horror with like storytellers and stuff like that. Also, something that comes to mind, and just because of the setting, not necessarily the execution, I think of like The Hunger, that series that was on Showtime, where it was an anthology series.
I've heard of it. I've never seen it, but I have heard of it.
And so it was an offshoot of the movie that Tony Scott had made. I'm trying to remember who the fuck the host was, but basically it was all these type of kind of crazy supernatural tales that came from the point of view of this storyteller. And I think especially when you have the type of storytellers that, make it engaging and make it kind of, hard to look away, but in a good way. Because once again, it goes back to being able to like, oh, what's this? You kind of check it out and you're like, okay. So the show was called The Hunger, and it was the horror anthology series. And it was hosted. So the first season was hosted by Terrence Stamp, and the second season was hosted by David Bowie. And it was from like Ridley Scott and Tony Scott.
Wow. I'm surprised
and
that got wow.
Kind of pretty awesome stuff. And I've always loved those type of kind of, because for me it plays like literary TV, where you have these type of hosts, where you have this person does this and this person does that, and I've always enjoyed those type of shows. And I don't know if you ever saw that the movie it's based on somewhat, which is it's a very kind of avant-garde horror tale. It's Tony Scott. It's actually one of Tony Scott's kind of earlier movies. And it's very much a case of a lot of these, and it all kind of happens at like a supernatural level, but a lot of the themes are also like, greed and lust and power and money. And it all plays into a lot of these characters that are very much, of a supernatural form. But once again, like the person who takes you through the story, the person who leads you through, plays a very huge piece in what we watch and how we watch it. Because I think that was one of the huge enjoyments for me for this, where obviously, I mean, once again, that ass, like I you know what I mean? I couldn't take my eyes off the character because of just the sheer banana-is. And that's also some of the fun. Like, oh fuck, what are they going to do next? What are they going to do next? And then you start to learn about the character as they do banana shit, because it's like, hey, isn't that fucked up? And then you have the next thought that goes, well, that fits from what we've been shown so far. And that's a good time. That's where you're like, okay. So it sounds like it sounds like the production, good sir, was a lot. But, when you do these type of productions, like it all has to have passion at its core. The intangible has to connect to the tangible, especially once you start making it, like why you keep doing this and stuff like that. A perfect example of a movie I saw not that long ago where the passion done runneth over is Monkey Man from Dev Patel. And it is very much kind of like Slumdog Millionaire meets John Wick. But when he talks about like what it took to get this made, and what makes it so great is even with everything that happened, like he got money pulled, he had a producer back out, he couldn't afford this crane shot that at one point they could, funding got pulled, so he couldn't. So he had to do shots with his iPhone where it was wrapped in this thing that they threw together with a rope on the end of it and film like what's supposed to be this big kind of crane shot that moves back. He had to film it with an iPhone at the end of a rope hanging out of a window, where it's like, I'm gonna fucking do this. I don't know how I'm gonna fucking do this, but I'm doing this. And that's what's so great about when filmmakers, you know, get to and usually it does come into the factor of money, where it's things they can't do. But when they have that hat on where they're like, I'm fucking doing this. How are you going to do it? That's not the point. I said I'm doing it.
Right.
And and sometimes it has to be like that. Like it has to be almost kind of this gonzo approach, you know, where you're constantly told, you can't do this. You're not doing this. I'm doing this. How are you doing this? I didn't say all that. Like now you're kind of, you know, it almost like, well, now you're just feeding me words. But I can only imagine, good sir, and that's why even more hats off for making this. I love Hellvira. I share so much of what he posts on my social media because I enjoy it. And I'm very much, especially at a point in my life where, like, you know, bring the things you love to other people and kind of bring them into the fold, and do it in a sense where it's like, hey, this gives me the smiles. I'm going to give you some smiles. I want to give you, like, you know, because I have a lot of friends who are obviously in horror genre stuff. And I think that's such a great way to kind of live as a whole, like share the positive, you know, and back people for what they do, because it takes stones and it takes, you know, an iron vajayjay to fucking get up and do shit and create things and kind of work your miracle when things are going to get in the way. People are going to get in the way. You know, things and people are going to get in the way. So I've kind of just reached that point in my life where I'm all about pushing the positive. I mean, obviously we'll have things we don't like, but I think the ideal of pushing the negative is like festering in it. And it's kind of the misery loves company, where, you know, even with the stuff we critique, like we critique and we move on, but also we spend more time like this on the stuff we love, and the stuff that makes us happy, and the stuff that goes, well, this is why I like horror. This is why I love these creators that are pulling themselves together and have people who back them and pull them together to make this kind of stuff happen. You know, let the naysayers be damned. You know, to quote immortally Nick Hexum for 311, fuck the naysayers because they don't mean a thing, because this is what style we bring. Oddly enough, I am wearing a 311 t-shirt from when I saw them at Sandy Amphitheater, which is like 10 minutes down the road from me. And that was a great show because at the time, not to get sidetracked, but they kept playing the USANA and they weren't really selling the place. So they went from a place that held like 15,000 people to an amphitheater that held like 6,000 people. So it's a difference in energies. Like, it's still a great positive crowd for 311, but you turn around and you get them into like a 6,000 seat venue, and it's like, okay, like now you're like, gotcha, that's a fucking awesome, you know. So, and yes, for some of you are like, wait, 311's still around? It's like, yes. After 30 plus years, they are still touring. I've seen them numerous times. I know somebody who's literally seen them, like, they're probably at about 40 times seeing them.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'm at about 10, or I'm between about 10 to 13. I've seen them many times. I've enjoyed them. But I think that's such a great message. Like, do what you're going to do, you know, and you want to hope there's an audience for it. You want people to enjoy it as much as you enjoy bringing it to them, but it's always a risk, of course. I mean, look at it this way. Pulp Fiction's my favorite movie. There are people who literally think it's like the worst movie ever made. Obviously, they're fucking high and they're wrong.
Yes.
But having said that, but it does make a point to where it's like everybody's going to have an opinion. But there's such a huge difference between having an opinion and knowing how to structure it as opposed to shitting on something. And I've kind of reached a point in my life where I don't really want to do that. I like to share what makes me happy. And that's why I share a lot of the Hellvira stuff, because that ass makes me happy. What are you going to do? But also just to see somebody making things like that is what makes me happy. So I'm happy to share. I know you've got stuff in the works. Naners. I just have so much fun saying that. Even with me feeling sick as a dog, like I'm still getting enjoyment out of that. I'm getting miles out of that, baby.
I mean, that's great.
Yeah. Because I just think of being a kid, like naners. But I really enjoy this. And the trailer is a blast. And if you like if you watch the trailer and it's like, so is there more of that in the movie? Yeah, there is. Like, do that. So, no, hats off to you, good sir, Morgan. Congratulations. I look forward to seeing more of what you do with it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to her video game, her cryptocurrency, and why not?
Yeah.
Hey,
I mean,
look at it this way. You and me, we come from a time, Morgan, I'm pretty sure you as well. And we come from a time, and I remember I remember seeing some of this kind of stuff, watching certain YouTube channels, because obviously there's a new Beetlejuice. I have not seen it yet.
Yeah,
I will see it next Tuesday. Obviously I've been under the weather, and as much as I want to definitely go to a theater for a Tim Burton movie,
yeah,
obviously I ain't feeling it, so it ain't happening.
Yeah.
But having said that, come on, brain. Where am I going? Come on. Shit. What was I saying?
That you haven't seen. There's a new Beetlejuice. You haven't seen it yet.
Oh, no. Okay, there. I picked up my thought. There it is. It's back. So, being a child of the 70s and 80s, it was always mind-blowing to me after the fact. Like, I look back 10, 20 years later, give or take, and I realize, holy shit, they had action figures for Rambo. We had cartoons for Rambo. We had cartoons for Beetlejuice. Being a horned up zombie demon bioexorcist. So I don't think there's such thing as the landscape being, limited for what you could do with the character, because we came from a time where RoboCop had a cartoon. And this is a scene where there was an attempted rape by a woman, and a cyborg cop shoots a would-be rapist in the dick. And one of my favorites, so I saw this. This is such a great meme. And it's a girl at a con. She took a picture with Peter Weller, who of course was RoboCop for so long and amazing. But kid you not, she took a picture and she's standing next to him. And on the shirt she's wearing, standing next to the man who portrayed RoboCop for so long and did an amazing job with it, she's standing next to him, and the shirt says, "Hey, remember that time RoboCop shot that guy in the dick?"
That's great.
Yes. And Weller's face is like, Peter Weller's face is just pure glee. Yeah, Bakaru Banzai fucking loved it. He was like, hell yeah. And the best part about it is when you look at this girl, kid you not, she was not around when the first RoboCop was around. When Weller did the first two movies, you know, and he did like video games and stuff like that. Like he came back for the Mortal Kombat stuff when they brought RoboCop to Mortal Kombat.
I didn't even realize they did that, but holy shit.
Yeah. I wish he would come here. He's never been to FanX yet. And he started doing cons. He's in his 70s, and he's been doing cons for a minute. But I wish he would come here because he's actually, and this is where some of the geek vibes are going to be like, wait, what? So Peter Weller, I was a fan of, and I felt like he should have been bigger. I mean, not to say the man didn't have a career. The man had a great career. But I know, at least for me, one movie of his that I love, and it was during a time when Hollywood was hung up on making underwater movies. Because you had 3 movies come out roughly in like a year and a half, 2 years. You had Deep Star 6, which was from the director of the first Friday the 13th. That movie wasn't my bag. Second movie was The Abyss from James Cameron, which I still love. And I actually love the 4K version of it. I think it's easily one of the most beautiful movies I've ever watched. Maybe a little corny in some places, sure, but as a whole, I still think the movie holds up extremely well. And the third one is called Leviathan with Peter Weller and Ernie Hudson and Amanda Pays and Daniel Stern. Yes, Daniel Stern, one of the would-be robbers from Home Alone 1 and 2. And it's a sea creature movie. And part of what also makes it enjoyable for me is it's got Richard Crenna in it, who I became a fan of. My father was a fan of, but I got introduced to him by way of Rambo because he played Troutman. And I think what was funny is he was, so Troutman was originally cast, I think it was Warren Beatty. And for some reason, I can't remember what it was, but he left the production. Warren Beatty was actually cast. It wasn't like, oh, we're trying to get him. It's like, oh, no, we got him, but they didn't keep it. And I think Crenna was literally like, oh shit, he's available. Get him to Vancouver. And I've always been a fan of Crenna because Crenna was always one of those, like almost Leslie Nielsen of the time, where they were able to play that kind of, I hate to use the term uppity, but just kind of like tough guy, but more like witty tough guy. It wasn't like, well, you know, I'm ripped and like, I'm going to whoop your ass. It's like, no, these guys were like, you know, they had it up here. You know, it's like they kind of knew how to play like 3-dimensional chess, if you will. So, but yeah, I mean, Hellvira, shit. If they're talking like Hellvira cryptocurrency, ooh, Morgan, I got it. You are going to thank me. If you cut me in for a percentage, I won't hate you for it. Hellvira fleshlights.
Ooh. That's...
Hey,
you know?
if they're making fuckable popcorn containers for Dune and Deadpool and Wolverine, I say you skip the container.
Yeah.
And you go right for the twat.
Oh. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you know what? And have it in stripes. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just did it that way.
Have it in stripes, and then at the edge of the vag, have like her orange pigtails, and you can just grab onto that shit with teeth. Yes,
yeah.
Yes,
yeah, yes. You know
see?
what? That's it. See, you get it.
See,
Get it.
I'm ahead of my time. Usually, I'm about like 35 minutes ahead, but yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's. I've always wanted a woman to bite me there. So yes, please.
Well, and Well, one time I had braces, and then she went back to the dentist, and I went to the doctor. Anyway, so
I've always wondered about braces too. They seem very.
you ever see a
I
dog
don't
with
know.
rabies with a chew toy? Just imagine that. Anyway, you what just happened? Fuck just happened? Where am I? Where are you people? What have you done with my horse? What is happening? But I am a firm believer in like, because I can't help but to think, and once again, it goes back to the creative comedic genius that is, I think Mike's peeing himself from laughing so hard. You're welcome. See, aren't you glad my tummy got a little better and I'm still going? Look at this. Look at this guy.
I can't.
It's a good thing you weren't drinking water because it would be all over the camera. It'd be like a Jackson Pollock. Breathe, motherfucker, breathe.
It's like it's weird because it's like I got winded. Like I was laughing, but I got winded, and I couldn't breathe, but I still was laughing. It's like it's almost like I was hyperventilating, but not. But hyperventilating, but not. It's just one of the weirdest fucking feelings. I don't know how that happens. That's really weird. Somebody should create a character like that. Just where
That's
they're like
should.
weird.
But I believe no, but I think of like Spaceballs because Mel Brooks fucking nailed it. Because people are like, oh well, they'll put it on, they'll put this on whatever. And I'm like, you know what though? There's an audience for it. They continue to make it because somebody's gonna buy it. And to kind of just shut that down, because people love to do that. It's like, oh well, that's silly, I'm not gonna buy it. Okay. Didn't necessarily mean it was made for you. Sure, somebody will buy it.
Yeah.
But don't think. But I'm also the mindset of don't think yourself so high and mighty.
No.
You know what I mean?
Definitely not.
Where you think you're not just going to buy it just because you're you, and it's like, well, somebody may come around to that. So that's how I always see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would come around too. And Hellvira Fleshlight lets do that. That's great.
Maybe Hellvira Viagra.
You know
Make the
what?
pill striped.
No. How about Hellvigra?
Hey, Hellvigra! Bang! Cut, print, check the gate. Moving on.
I would say Hellviagra, but Hellvigra.
Hellviagra.
One of those.
Hey, whatever
Something
works.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good shit. That's pretty funny, actually.
Sometimes, every once in a while, I hit, but other times it's just I'm here.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Well, yeah, that's Oh man, wow.
Right? See?
Yeah.
Marketing, baby, marketing.
That's what it is. That's all it is.
Well, and the thing is too is that and you also got to remember when you don't have like a hold on mediums, you can go anywhere. Hellvira podcasts, Hellvira graphic novels, Hellvira dinner theater, Hellvira sock puppets.
Yeah, you could have a Hellvira sock puppet and then Mr. Nanners, and you could sell them as a set, and they can interact together. Yeah.
I want to see it go the other direction because, I love looking at some of them where it's like they make them for The Office, but they have like Fisher Price little figures.
Mm-hmm.
For The Office. Now, we've seen The Office, And some of that stuff is like, wait, you went Fisher Price with that shit? But then again, we had action figures of the Ghostbusters, and there's a ghost blowjob in a dream. So
there is.
Sooner or later, it's all marketable. It is. It is. And people try to kind of hate on that, and it's like, yeah, I really can't, because I mean, if people are buying it, why not sell it? Because if they're not buying it from you, they're going to go buy it from somebody else. So why rob yourself of that satisfaction when you can find a way to it just as much as anybody else did? Because if you don't do it, somebody else will. Yeah. Almost similar to like The Crow, like a perfect example. Like in the case of the, kind of coming back to that, bringing that back around. You look at the Burbs, that was always with Universal. But in the case of Crow, like, that was Miramax. Like that jumped companies. Sony was one of them, I believe, at one point. But sooner or later, somebody got a hold of the rights and cut that check. So, and to be fair, its opening weekend was like less than $5 million, but people went to it opening weekend. I was one of them. Do I regret it? Yeah, a little bit.
What was the budget for that? I didn't even look that up. I'm very curious.
Reported production budget was like $50 million. So it's a fucking bust. Like you can't even try to paint that number in a nice light. Yeah. A lot of the marketing too was very stealth, was very smaller then. Yeah.
And the trailer, I mean, when I first saw the trailer, I'll be honest, I was out. Like, I was out as soon as I saw that trailer. I was like, nope.
I was just trying to figure out where they were going. And then I watched the movie, and I'm still trying to figure that out. Yeah, the movie unfortunately has a lot of that.
It's very disappointing.
Yeah, just creatively bankrupt, because they were just trying to get it made to say we could remake it and try to make a buck. That's the difference between making something, throwing money at it, and then see what sticks, as opposed to something, like Hellvira, where it spawns from somewhere, and then its application is also from that somewhere, not just a case of, oh, well, we got to do this. No, when something stays creator centric, that's when you get the best stuff. That's when you realize, like, this is what he created, what it was supposed to be, as opposed to, because like a perfect example, okay, The Crow. There's no ringing endorsement from James O'Barr about this movie. Yeah. There's at no point you're going to run across a blurb where he's like, they did it. They took my life's work and did a thing with it. And at no point has that happened.
No.
So
no, that's not surprising at all.
I can only imagine what he thought. And like I said, I've met the man. He's actually a very nice man, very soft-spoken, very kind, like talking to fans.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been doing this. He's obviously done other things, but like The Crow, he's The Crow also came from that time too, where companies made comic book movies, and they were kind of looking for, like, not just a sidestep, but they were looking from the other side, because you have that a lot of that started, and people were like, well, seemingly it must have started from Batman. Well, yeah, but also you got to remember, a lot of those movies didn't really go that route as far as the bigger characters. They went for smaller characters. They went for things that were darker and once again more creator centric. That's why you got stuff like The Crow, and that's why you got stuff like The Mask, which I'm still waiting for a remake, because they could knock that shit out of the park if they really wanted to.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, But truly, with Hellvira, it is definitely, from such a great creative source to where you can tell what's there, what's been put together comes from them. And I think that's what's so important. But, when IPs turn into IPs, when they get big, I think that's one thing that gets lost. So I definitely don't see that happening here because this is just so awesome. It's like, yeah. I know Morgan's got great plans for this, whatever it may be. And he's on the same page. Like, he's got teeth on the fucking fleshlight.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be even better. It'd be even better if they were like actual mandibles that moved. So it was like, arr, 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 arr. That would be awesome. I'm still waiting for the Cape movie. Amen. You know what I'm waiting for? I'm waiting for, and I like the original, but I'm waiting for another one. I am waiting for The Shadow.
Are they, well, wait, you mean the one, because they did that with, who the hell was in The Shadow? Was that Alec Baldwin, or was that, it was the Baldwin, wasn't it? Wasn't that Alec Baldwin?
Alec Baldwin. Oh God, The Cape, that would make an amazing movie. One of the ones that I loved the comic, the version they've done, because this is when Sony started kind of doing their own stuff on PS4, PS5, well, PS4. But they did Powers, which was a comic book. And they did it as a series for 2 seasons, and it really wasn't all that. But that was pretty... Basically, Powers was an investigative police division that was dedicated to investigating crimes by people with superpowers. And that comic was amazing. The series they did wasn't really all that. They tried, but they didn't really do much there. It didn't go the way I had hoped. But then sometimes we just get patient, and then we get The Boys on Amazon.
Right.
And they fucking knocked that out of the park. And granted, they took their liberties like anything else, like as would be expected. But even with the liberties taken, like a lot of what's there, they did such a great job. Yeah, and Preacher was a series. It's interesting watching some of these IPs, these characters kind of go into the stratosphere and where they go with that. But Dark Horse, I mean, obviously they did an amazing Hellboy movie, at least the first 2. Speaking of which, I'm going to chime in on that a little bit while my stomach is still in check and I'm not shitting myself. So September 27th, there's actually a theatrical release for the new Hellboy movie, Hellboy the Crooked Man. Now, the storyline in the comic book is pretty awesome. Now, I don't know if anybody out there, or Mike, if you've seen the trailer for this.
For Hellboy?
The new
For
Hellboy.
Man? No, I did not see.
Yes.
I can look it up if you'd like to play it.
Oh, no, we don't have to do that to our audience. That's not nice.
Okay. Okay, so it's not. All right, so I'm taking it that it's not good. Okay, then we'll spare.
Okay, so the storyline is great. I thought that was a fan film. I thought it was too, but it's actually. So one of the comments here, I thought it was a fan film. It's actually directed by one of the because I think it's Brian Taylor. And he was part of the group that made the 2 Crank movies and did Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. So this was like an actual production, and it's actually getting a theatrical release.
So,
And it looks a little rough.
so wait, but there was a Hellboy in, was it 2019?
2019.
David Harbour.
That was David
Are
Harbour.
we
Yep.
supposed to forget that one, or is this one? Because this one isn't a continuation of that. This one's totally different, correct?
Oh God, yes. So the Hellboy. No, this is, and look, I could watch it and love it, but here's my beef. Okay.
Yes.
You know, even with the David Harbour one, which wasn't that good, Hellboy as a character, even in the comic, is so striking. You know, once again, to kind of hit back on Hellvira, excuse me, is the fact that you can't look away. You know, these characters are arresting and engaging for a reason, just by sheer visual. Hellboy is one of those. This is the first time I've seen a live action rendering of a Hellboy where I'm like, did you just pick all this shit up at like Spirit of Halloween? Because the character, the figure, and like I said, maybe it plays into the story, but the figure, the character that we see, none of it's foreboding. None of it is like, I'm looking at this thing going, oh shit. Like, I'm feeling none of that.
Oh,
Yeah.
it just seems like such a waste.
That's what's making it feel kind of rough. Because
Well,
I'm looking at this thing, and
a lot of money.
well, I don't know how much the movie cost. It doesn't look like it cost much, but it does kind of make me just wonder, like, you know, you do your best. Like, once again, it goes back to creators, because Mike Mignola apparently has a big hand in this one. So, you know, it may get his stamp of approval, and it's going to be kind of interesting to see how that's going to look. But Guillermo del Toro and Ron Perlman stuck that landing so hard with the first 2 movies. You know, they really, really did. So now that the stories are getting smaller and the character is getting kind of minimized in the process, feels it's a little rough for somebody like me who is a pretty devout Hellboy fan. It's kind of a bummer, really. So we'll see. I haven't decided if I'm going to see it in the theater yet, because I don't know if it's going to, you know, garner that, if you will, where it's like, okay, well, yeah, we got to do that. I want to see it in the theater.
Oh, shit.
Even
the
the, huh?
You know, do you ever watch Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
The remake or the old one?
No, the original series. Did you ever watch that?
Yeah.
You know Jeffrey the Butler?
Fuck yeah, he's in it.
Yeah, he's in it.
Yes, Master Will. I'll be sure to iron your hoodies.
Oh my God, I don't
So,
believe this.
yeah, it looks kind of on a more smaller focus scale. And I think part of that is playing into it being a very specific storyline within the Hellboy verse. It's not something that's big. It's not something that's drawn out big theatrically, because the original storyline in the comic doesn't play that way. So I kind of see where they're going. I just want to know like kind of what direction. And the actor, like I said, I'll have to see for myself. But I gotta say, you know, that character visually of Hellboy is so arresting. Like you can't not look at him. And then you have this actor, Jack Kersey, I think it is, if I have that right. And he kind of just looks like, I mean, it's like almost, I mean, it barely looks like kind of cosplay makeup. It's a little diminished from what I've grown used to. And not to necessarily pass a judgment on it, but something we talked about earlier in this particular episode. Yeah, you get precious of something, you're going to be vocal, but also try to remain positive because I haven't seen it yet.
Right.
So I'm definitely interested. I don't know if it's going to be a trip to the theater. I kind of want it to be because it's Hellboy, but I have no doubt this thing's going to be on VOD in like 10 days after its theatrical release.
I mean, look at The Crow. So
yeah. The Crow is.
They're just trying to recoup any money possible, and you know what? I don't even know if there's people out there that would be willing to pay to rent it or buy it digital, based on what I've heard from you about it.
They, you know, it's funny how some things are finding their audiences on streaming, not far off from way back when in the 80s with Blockbuster, where movies didn't do that hot, but then people rented it and, you know, studios made money they didn't expect to make money off certain things and then turned around and went, well, shit, we got to do that. So it's kind of interesting to watch that because apparently more people watched Madam Web on streaming than they did in the theaters. Fuck, I wish I waited till streaming. That was
Then you could have just turned it off if you know.
Well, there's so much teases for things that we know are never going to happen because there's never going to be a sequel. But Madam Web was a case of, well, let's just do this and see what happens. Yeah, it was one of those movies, which even more so, I'm like, boo.
Yeah, no, I hear that. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I stuck it out somehow.
You did? I'm
Yeah.
Wow.
It was that second Alka-Seltzer break.
Yeah, I think that really did help prolong. I mean, it was good though. It's good to be back in a rhythm.
Absolutely.
I mean, if we can do weekly, that would be great. If we can't, then we'll work it out.
I think we can do
just
that.
However, yeah, I mean, do you still want to do Thursdays or do you want to switch to Saturdays? We can do whatever you want. It's all up to what works for you. So think on that. And,
oh no,
Thursdays.
Thursdays are great. Saturdays I kind of like too, but yeah, we can make that up as we go along. And I'd love to go to weekly. I think I would love to do that. I think that'd be a blast.
Well, because I think honestly, I've noticed that with shows on the network that are like consistent on a weekly basis have better kind of retention than if we did the bi-weekly. And I think now that we have the opportunity, because the schedule kind of thinned out a bit, and we have the opportunity to do weekly, if you're open for it, I think that'll really help us build.
I'm open.
You know?
I'm open. I'll try not to shit myself so much.
Well, I mean, if it happens, we can make a Patreon. We can make like a shit cam, and we can have that on like Patreon, so people can pay to see the shit cam. That would be just an added bonus for special people that are into that type of thing, because there are fucking people that have shit fetishes for whatever reason. Oh, they sure do.
There you go.
Yeah. It's so then okay. So then we'll look at Thursday, and I guess we'll talk about what you would like to cover, and I'll try to. We'll get another intro going for the.
I've already got next week's episode cooked up.
Oh, do you? Do you want to tease?
I sure as fuck do.
Okay, let's tease him. What do we got?
I'm trying to think if I want to tease. I'm trying to think of how to tease it.
Well, while you do that, while you think for a second, I'll just say that I am going to try to get more guests in here, because I talked to you before about getting guests in to, like, for interviews and whatnot. I did try to get Osgood Perkins, but we did get blown off because they said that he was not available at this time, I guess, because they had already done the press.
He's making the sequel to Long Legs. He's making Longer Legs.
I didn't see that, though, and I really wanted to, so I'll have to.
It's good. It's a good time.
Is it good? Yeah, I'll have to. I'll have to check that.
Well, and you can see it takes its cues from other things and kind of makes it its own. So, yeah, a lot of the stuff I really liked in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you dig it.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm gonna. It's coming out on disc on September 24th, I think. I think I pre-ordered.
So
I have to check.
Here's my tease, and I'll tell you offline.
Yes.
But here's my tease.
Okay.
So next week's episode is going to be dedicated to a particular horror franchise.
Ooh.
And it's one that I'm almost ashamed I'm a fan of, but I love, especially when it comes to horror, like I love ridiculous shit. Mm-hmm. And let's just say be careful what you wish for.
Do you know how I feel about said franchise, or you have no idea?
Oh, I don't know. We'll talk offline. I don't know how you feel about that one, if we're thinking of the same one.
Well, one thought came to my mind when you said it, so we'll have to see if
okay. I have a feeling you're catching what I'm throwing, but we'll save it for next time.
I probably am, but yeah, we'll it's gonna be something. That's gonna be good.
Yeah. We won't get into it, especially considering I probably got to run to the can in the next 5 minutes. So.
Yes.
I've held on as best I can, folks.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. So, well, did you decide which day next week you'd like to do, or do you still want to wait and we'll see how it goes, depending on how you're feeling? And
I say let's go with Thursday.
Okay.
I like Thursday, unless that's too soon, based against this being Saturday. And
it's fine. I mean, it's fine for me. I don't,
Okay. There it is.
Yeah, we can do Thursday.
There it is. Date set.
Yeah. So we will be back Thursday. Hopefully, Theo feels better and we do not have to resort to shit cam. But we'll make a Patreon tier right for that.
Oh my god. Hey, I'm a little proud of myself. I think I helped together pretty
You
good.
did. You did, and I commend you. I seriously, I commend you for that. But I guess because I don't want to, you know, what is it? I really don't want you to have to, you know, run to the can, so to speak. So I guess we'll end it here, and we will.
I held on pretty good. I'm proud of me. Once again, everybody chiming in, thank you so much, Morgan, Mr. Nainers. Congratulations on Hellvira. I think it's wonderful. Looking forward to sharing more and talking about it more, as well as you know, get more people on board because it's good stuff. And like I said, badass. And The Crow, skip it. Like, go get dental surgery instead of watching The Crow. Like, go do that. Like, be constructive with your time. And I'm not trying to be hating. I'm just like, just be more constructive of your time. That's all. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. I think from everything I've heard that you're correct. But aside from that,
thank you all so much. It's good to be back. Producer Mike!
See, I wish that I could make my voice do what you do, but damn it, you're just that good.
And I'm like at 40% because I'm sick.
I mean, if this is 40%, then you're real. I mean, it's amazing because you're a real trooper with this. Oof. If it was me, I would have canceled. So I commend you. But yeah, if it was me, I would have canceled. So I definitely commend you. But all right, everyone, we'll see you Thursday.
You're right there.
Bye. I'm okay, I think. See you Thursday.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.